Yes, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the space. It's a pleasure having all of you and hoping you had a great day. As we wait for other members to join in, we'll be expecting at least six speakers on the space this evening. And we made in such a way that they will be able to do a few presentations. And on top of that, we'll be able to achieve our main objective, which is have an open letter written to the incoming president of Kenya, that is Deputy President and President-elect William Samoei Ruto. It gives me absolute pleasure to invite all of you and, of course, take this moment to reflect on a lot of things that have happened, including the news coming from the UK, the passing on of the Queen, Elizabeth II. From here, I just want to wish the family and friends and, of course, the people of United Kingdom sincere condolences. Nobody celebrates death. Therefore, we join them in this moment of loss, praying that they'll be able to go through this loss and come out stronger, despite all the challenges facing the country, and of course, all of us around the globe. I take this opportunity to welcome my first speaker, Marge, to greet us. And Marge, the mic is yours. Good evening. Marge, if you can hear me, would you fix the microphone? Okay, as Marge tries to adjust to microphone things, I will quickly want to introduce the topic of the evening. We will be looking at unemployment crisis and generally which gets to cut across the cost of living. For those who have been following the news closely, you'll notice that Kenya is struggling with a lot of issues, and among them is the high unemployment rate among the youth. It might be a bit subjective if we limit it to the youth, because everyone out of work or out of a means of living is affected at the end of the day with the economic condition. And therefore, I will call upon all speakers that will be coming in to broaden their view, even as we focus on young people and the youth at large. We understand it's the most employed or employable age bracket, and therefore we will be focusing on them as we do the presentation, but have a global view of how issues are. Isaiah, thank you so much for coming in. I see you on the listeners' desk. I do appreciate you joining the space. Consultant, I see you've requested the mic. However, we will be first giving priority to the speakers of the evening, and then we'll be giving an open mic session to everyone that is on the bench to be able to give us their input of the conversation. So yes, as I was saying, Kenya is facing a lot of unemployment, high employment rate and crisis. In a recent interview by the now deputy president, who is now president-elect, with CNN, he mentioned that about 5 million young people are unemployed and 4 million people in Kenya at the verge of starvation because of hunger. So with all that in mind, I am a bit curious to understand why is this the case and what can we do about this issue. So I see Marge is finally with her microphone, and I'll give her an opportunity to say hi and, of course, introduce herself without forgetting to focus on our topic of the night. Marge.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marge. I live in Germany. I'm Kenyan. And yes, at the moment, the situation back home is really, I would say, almost catastrophic because of the lack of employment. There are a lot of graduates actually that have been looking for jobs for almost 5 years. And the cost of living is also very high. So we are looking forward to having a conversation whereby we do not only point at the problems, but try to find solutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Marge. I like the fact that you say we'll not just be looking at the problems, we'll equally be looking to find out the solution. Gordon, you can show me by sending me a short text in the DM if you're ready with the information I'd asked for. But as we do that, we'll invite all of us to be able to participate by sending a chat. I don't know why the chat section is not active, but I hope we can be able to send in the tweet that I'm sending out right now. And again, the subject matter is unemployment, and we are discussing this, addressing the president, or rather the incoming president, hoping that our contribution in this conversation will be healthy and, of course, give some solutions rather than just critiquing what has been happening, and be able to contribute towards improving the situation in Kenya and, of course, around the globe, if you have to look at it in terms of what policies or measurements you can take thereof to combat the situation. So feel free to engage us. I've sent out a tweet. You can correspond on that tweet. And if you want to contribute, you can equally send the same to my DM if you don't feel like taking up the mic. So, Marge, the first question I'll be asking us is, when we talk about unemployment in the country, a lot of it has been associated with the economics. One will still want to find out, is it the skills that are lacking, rather in terms of qualification, or is it the market that is lacking, the job employment market? Marge?
I think both of them is actually the problem. I mean, due to our economic struggles, at the moment you find that there are actually no jobs. But at the same time, we lack skills. You find that, just the same problem. There are people who are not able to go to school because their parents are earning less or something like that. So their skills are not very good. You know, if you try to just employ somebody, I thought it was easy to find a high school graduate, but I was looking, for example, for a role. I was looking to employ a storekeeper that has a high school certificate. It was not easy to find one. I found many, and they were really willing to work. But by the end of the day, when I asked them, so what about your educational status, you would find that high school is also surprisingly still not very much easy to come by. And at the same time, the graduates that I've employed, I find sometimes that they're just not ready. I don't know, maybe because they've been jobless. They haven't had an opportunity to acquire skills. So you find that somebody is a graduate of business administration, but they cannot think on that line. So I think both is lacking. The skills are lacking, but at the same time, the job market, the opportunities are also lacking.
But Marge, even if we talk about, I'm interested about the opportunity aspect. Are you still talking, or you want me to proceed?
It's all right.
It's all right. Oh, okay, great. So I was saying, when we talk about the skill aspect, I'm interested to find out. We hear a lot of information when it comes to hiring, and when people are looking to hire, the most common word I hear is experience. And these new graduates will say, where do you expect me to get experience? So they look at it as a technical lockout from the job market. What do you make of that, Marge?
I mean, the problem is quite international, I would say. Even in some jobs, in other countries, you find that they expect a lot of experience from candidates. But at least in other countries, you find that they give the youngsters an opportunity whereby they start working early. I mean, when they're younger, or even when they're doing the internships, they really already know which direction they want to go. They're doing the internships according to their career, and not just what mostly happens in Kenya, whereby somebody just goes to do an internship for the sake of a CV. So they gather experience, a little experience, but the culture is also a thing, because I find that, I don't know, the Kenyan culture sometimes is very restrictive, where they say, well, these are the requirements and this is the only thing we need. But here, in as much as they need experience, you could still find places whereby somebody just says, okay, fine, we will do an on-job training on you. So it's better here, because they give them more chances than back home, whereby they just restrict and say you have to bring in experience, which of course you're not given a chance to have. You cannot have it from anywhere when you're not having the opportunity to build that experience.
Okay, interesting perspective in that. I would like to have MK come in. MK, trying to send you out the mic. You're one of the speakers, but I don't know if you've been able to see the invite. If you can kindly accept the mic, as I equally invite in Maurice, who just joined us, and he's one of our guest speakers tonight. So MK, kindly get the mic. Let me know if you're ready to go. You can request one if you don't see the invite. Equally, Maurice, who just joined us, I'll be expecting you to pick up that mic in order to speak to us. Godwin, by any chance, you're ready so that I can give the mic to your end? Show me a sign. I equally sent you an invite on the same, as we prepare for the other guests to come in. So we are discussing about the unemployment crisis and the cost of living by extension. And one of the things is that in a recent interview by CNN, the deputy president, who is now president-elect, pointed out that the rate stands at about 5 million unemployed young people. So that figure, it's a bit amorphous compared to the population, which without a lot of authority, I would say it stands at about 40 million or 40 million plus, depending with the census that people are looking at. However, the recent findings also showed there are only 6 million Kenyans or so are in formal employment. When I talk about formal, I'm talking about the 8 to 5 kind of job that a lot of us will subscribe to. And 16 million are in formal employment. And that, as a reflex, it says most of these people probably, they could be employed, but the security of their jobs, it's not as convincing. How they could lose their job any day, but that does not also make them secure just because you are working in a blue chip company. We've seen a lot of companies closing down thanks to the economic crisis. So here we are trying to find out, how can we help elevate this situation? Maurice, are you ready by any chance? Or are you guys struggling to get the mic? Because I know we had this problem last week when people were trying to get the mics. I can see the invitation that's still pending, so I'll be waiting for you guys to actually come in.
I mean, as you wait for them, Eli, can you hear me?
Yes, proceed. I've muted for you to be able to speak.
Yeah, I'm saying as you wait for them, maybe I can say something if you allow.
Kindly proceed.
Yeah. So what I think should also be part of solution is that we should have really an early training of the youths who are unemployed, so that at least if they get a chance of getting these jobs, they can keep those jobs. They can present a case when coming to an interview or requesting for a job, and they can also keep those jobs. Because my experience has also been that it's not very easy to get good employees. You get people who really need jobs and they tell you they need those jobs, but once you employ them, that is when you see that they don't have work ethics. So that is something we need to also train our youngsters on. And I remember when I was in high school, we did not have much of this in our curriculum. We had I think just a book. We were given a book where we were supposed to choose careers. So I think the curriculum should also really take care of those, or they have a job training, like in high school when they're almost done, you just have a job training session that really prepares them on what to expect out there. Thanks.
Job training, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because I actually would like to touch something on that, but probably at a later stage, once most of the speakers are in. Godwin, you want to speak to us, sir? And Pastor Esmond, I've sent you the speaker after you requested, but you might, the mic, but you dropped off. And MK, I'm still waiting on you to take the mic. Godwin, you can unmute and speak.
Good evening, everyone. Good to hear from you guys from after such a long time. I've been away, but good to be back. It's such a good topic to handle tonight, given that we're expecting a new regime to take over from next week after the swearing in of the next president. So it will be a good thing to see, because we've had an electionary period where people have supported whoever they're supporting, and then now we have a president. Now it's now time. So that things that we expect from the next government. So it's just a matter of time before we see how much will be achieved, because as you said in your opening statement, we are looking at a high rate of unemployment, and it's alarming, because if you look at the demographics, the unemployment rate has been growing ever since, So we want to see if anything will be done, or rather anything substantive, and this will be actually mostly to the maybe tax regimes that is going to come in the sense that many SMEs have been collapsing, and the reason is because of the double licensing, high taxes, So once these things are sorted out, because if you want to sort unemployment, you don't just come in and then start giving people jobs. It has to come from somewhere, strengthening businesses, the small businesses, because that's where now employment comes in. Once they're taken care of, we'll see something working out. So I'll stop at there, and we'll keep my contribution as the conversation continues. Thank you.
Okay, Godwin, you're talking of strengthening, the SMEs, and making sure that the business environment is friendly to allow employment for the young people and other interested parties. So I would like to hear from Pastor Esmond, who is joining us right now, and probably I'll bring Epiphany later on. MK, meanwhile, I have no idea what's happening on your end. You can text me on the sidebar, let me know. And Pastor Esmond, what do you think of this unemployment crisis facing Kenya?
Yeah, I think it's, and sorry, I apologize that I joined late, but glad that I'm able to join and participate in this. One of the challenges that I think, especially we are discussing in relation to the incoming government, my perspective and my honest opinion, and I've said it repeatedly in the past, is that the first thing to do is to drop the argument of the bottom-up thing. It won't work. It doesn't work. It was tried for about, I think they tried it for 6 months in 2003. They realized that we did not have even capacity to pump money into the bottom in order for us to start, creating, to do businesses and then start creating jobs. My recommendation is that looking at a rate of 3.5% of our country having the only people who have a college degree in Kenya who have graduated from university is 3.5%. And obviously, I'm suspecting that probably a good percentage of those are fake. So we are dealing with a situation where we don't have capacity to even send resources to the bottom, which some of us from the diaspora have tried to send, and it's been disastrous. here's my suggestion, and of course this will be discussed as we continue, is that we have to go back to the model of the 2003 and focus more on reviving what we have, the industries, the manufacturing industries and everything we have. We get these people into jobs to at least gain some even skills to know how to work. Any of you has ever always been an employee in Kenya, you know that one of the biggest challenges that we face is even work ethic. People really getting to go to work and do the work and expect. People are used to shortcuts, and that is going to be one of the things that the new government is going to face. So that you realize that our productivity is very low, and if our productivity is low, then we are dealing with a very big challenge. So my thinking is that the first step to addressing this is go back and revive those industries, get them on their feet, employ people. Let's go to Mumias and do something. Let's go to one of those existing ones that already have equipment and things like those, and then we start employing people. And then from there, if we're going to have entrepreneurs emerging from these, when they have capital, they have been trained on how to work for under somebody and being supervised, then we can move in the direction of trying to pump this much money that we are talking about into the bottom for purpose of creating employment. With my initial contribution.
Wow, Pastor Esmond, I thought you were still continuing, because clearly those are very heavy points you're making there. And I do agree with most of them, because they speak to the situation that we are dealing with. I will like to invite MK to give his opening remarks, and followed by Anari and then Epiphany, in that order. MK, are you ready? Because if you're speaking, your microphone is muted. Okay.
Yes, Eli.
Yes. Okay, now I can hear you.
Yes, I think you can hear me. But I can hear an echo. I don't know whether there is a problem on my end.
Maybe I can request Madge to mute.
Eli, thank you for having me on the show. I hope everyone is having a good time. Having a good time too, just settled from work. Eli, unemployment actually is a big problem as we speak. It has been a big problem since, from the little knowledge I gathered from 2016. Actually, from before 2016, we used to have an employment rate of about 2.8, ranging 2.8% to 2.7. But from 2016, we have had a very highly rising unemployment rate in the country. And right now, I think it is about 6.6, unless I'm wrong. I'm not good at statistics. But I believe at the moment, we actually need a government that is going to get us out of this pit. We have had a bad regime. I can't actually be ashamed to call it bad. We have had a bad regime especially between 2017 and 2022, where we have had all manner of policies that are against development. We have had industries collapsing. We have had taxes rising. We have had levies being imposed by county governments and national governments on businesses. We have had inflation, a very high rate of inflation. We have had actually Corona coming in, the COVID-19 coming in, affecting businesses and affecting economies. We have had, we now have the Ukrainian war. We have all manner of actually problems that affect the economies of countries, the countries that are still stabilizing like our own. And talking of unemployment is actually a very big issue. It's a very big problem as a country. We are a country of more than 50 million people. We have a working population, a labor force that is about 30 million. But how many of those are actually formally employed? But again, while talking of employment, some of these rates actually will talk of, some of these statistics will only gather around formal employment. But we have also informal employment. I still consider it a very important point of focus. informal employment is actually what is now going to save us as a country. That is what I believe. That is why we need a government that will now come in with policies that will favor investment. This is from the medium and small micro enterprises, all those policies and all those measures that are going to help the local person actually to start investing and doing business. And actually that is how the government will pick up. The government will now be able to collect from the people who are actually making money, rather than collecting money from people who are actually starving and perhaps earning very less from their formal employments. So we actually looking at a government that gave us a manifesto, Kenya Kwanza government that gave us a manifesto. We need to evaluate what exactly are they going to do different from what their previous two, maybe previous regime has been doing. We need to look at what have they brought on have they proposed on their manifesto, as much as we may not be certain that they are going to implement. We need to look at whether they'll actually, for instance, proposing a 50 billion annually to support the credit to small enterprises. Is that really going to work? Is it practical? Pastor Esmond is asking whether the bottom up can really, doubting whether the bottom up can work. We really need to look and dissect into it. I think I will add more flesh to my contribution as the discussion goes on. You will give me a chance, I will request.
Thank you so much, MK. MK is arguing the issue of looking at the Kenya Kwanza not manifesto, but manifesto on what they intend to do for the people of Kenya. And Pastor Edmond earlier on argued that this bottom-up thing is not gonna work. We need to rethink. MK, if you can mute. We need to rethink about reviving the dead industries that can work miracle for our people. I want to invite Anari to speak to us as we proceed with the conversation. Anari, please. Unemployment crisis. What do you make of it?
Thank you, my brother. I don't know if I should call you Eli or Eli Liguyani. These platforms are very informative. And every time I see that you are hosting, I have to rush here because the quality of brains that comes around this space is something that everybody should be yearning to listen to. Mine, I think, is very, very basic. I think the first thing that we need to consider is education system. I was having a conversation with my baby cousin the other day, and I was just asking him very simple questions. You go to nursery school, class 1, you get to class 8, and then you do a test. What you've been taught in 8 years, you should be examined in 1 hour. So it means if you do not have a cramming mind, according to our education system, you are a fool. So you're going to fail examinations, which is more of a qualification for you to get to the secondary school now. What you are taught in 4 years, again, is now broken to 2 hours of examination. Now, going by that education system alone, it tells you how many people will lose on examination, being examined out of, time versus what I would call, I don't know how to put it, but I hope you get what I'm saying. So I think the first thing that we need to consider is our education system. I don't know if CBC was coming to solve that issue. It is yet to be clear how CBC was brought to manage that situation. As of now, I can't really tell if it's successful or not. Number two, I feel like it's so sad. We've had governments since the first government of Kenya, a government that doesn't mind the young people of this nation. We need leaders who are conscious of, what you can get from the youth by investing in the youth, quality education. And then with the quality education, I believe we would get good jobs. When you look at the brain drain that is that is experienced out of Kenya. I know I've had a few of you outside the country. The reason as to why you're outside the country is because of our bad working environments or probably lack of job opportunities in Kenya. So we definitely need a system that has a record of how many graduates we have, if either from the tertiary institutions, colleges, universities. How many qualified people do we have vis-a-vis or versus the job opportunities? So that by the time the government is talking of we have job opportunities for 60 engineers, you already know how many people do not have jobs. You already know how many people qualify for that opportunity. You know, some things are very basic. I feel like all we lack is people who are determined to do something. And we will continue crying about this for as long as we get people who really understand, you know, the common problems that the common mwananchi faces. And it starts with that. So I personally, I feel like if that would be addressed by first of all working on our education system, then that is the root of everything else. Lastly, it is so sad to think of, you know, unemployment at times comes with, again, I'll go back to regimes, because our politics has been controlled by a few people ever since. You go to certain ministries and you'll get 90% of the people working in those offices are from a certain tribe. Why? Because the people who started there were from a particular tribe. It cuts across, and you find that we have very good brains from Northeastern, from Samburu, from Pokot, but at the end of the day, the opportunities are not given the same equally. That's what I mean. We have to be, my name is so and so for me to get, or who do I know? So basically, for me, it goes back to governance and you know, and getting people who really relate to the problems that we are facing. Right now, we only have clowns as leaders. We have people who do not understand our problems. It was so shameful today to watch the swearing in of MPs, and most of them could not even take an oath. English language was a problem, you know, and those are the people who are supposed to go out there now and work on policies that will support education and job and employment issues and what have you. Look at as I finish, look at what do I call them, business owners in Kenya. I operated a business in 2016, 2017, and the amount of money you get to pay before you even start operating is heartbreaking. You know, you're already talking of capital, but whatever you have to pay for you to operate a business in Nairobi is something crazy. But again, these are people who we you know, it is painful to even think about it, that you put people into offices, people who are supposed to go and think about you, but instead they do not. They'll come back in 5 years with money and whatever, and that is done. And again, it's repeated. So it's a cancer. Before, I think, I was jokingly saying to a few friends a while back, and I'm sorry to say it here, that for this country to go through a rebirth, every politician in the country right now needs to die, those that are in office, because it's a repetition. It's with these people have been there since 80s, 90s. I was looking at the members of parliament who are there. These are people who are repeated with Tangula, Kingi, you know, these are people who've been there. But what have they been able to do for the people for us to say, then we've gauged you through this, you've benefited the youth, you've created employment, you've done this and this, now we can give you more time to serve the people. It's not possible. So for us, it's a deep-rooted cancer, and it's a big hole that we are in for us to get out of there. Eli, for now, I will stop there. I'll probably come back later, let others speak.
Thank you so much, Anari. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you mentioned there, kept me, smiling at the same time, wanting to take the mic to ask more questions. But again, I would like to listen more because this session is to help us understand our problems and how we can fix those problems. You're talking about very serious steps such as Mother Nature taking care, of course, but we'll handle that at a later stage. For now, Epiphany, I want to welcome you and I want to recognize you. Rosemary, I'll be waiting to hear your contribution in this conversation, my dear good friend. Briefscope, thank you so much for joining us. And let's hear from Epiphany.
Thanks so much, Eli. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. Kindly proceed.
Thank you very much for this session, and as always, a pleasure to get to contribute. So I start where Ronald has left, and if that was Leonard, mine is first off is what I call co-operant factor, where the education system that we have is not offering good skills or the right skills for the market. My submissions will be in line with my work, which is in the IT profession. Being a developer in Kenya, I'll tell you that I know 100% of what I know today. Actually, let me not say 100. 99.99% is self-taught. If I didn't go to campus and use that money to buy Udemy courses, I would be a better developer today. So for me, is the market gap, the market education gap in terms of skills. Are we getting these youths the right skills for them to get into the job market and fit right in? As I talk about that, I go to what we need to do as a government. And I am happy to see Kamwana here. Kamwana is very, very passionate about farming and value addition. When you have a minute, add him to the speakers panel. We have a generation, or I don't know if I call them two generations, which are lazy generations. For lack of a better word, a generation that I belong to, but for lack of a better word, a lazy generation, where we don't want to do dirty work. We just want to do white collar jobs. And these jobs are not enough for everyone. But if you meet people like Kamwana posting gumboots on their timelines and showing things like farming, that is where by looking outside the government, because depending on government to provide for us, then it becomes almost a bottleneck for all of us. Again, there are things like how do we create jobs without manufacturing? Because we have government that invests so much in other sectors that don't pay, but we fail to invest in sectors that would really solve unemployment, like manufacturing. So look at the policies we are making on businesses. I remember during Kibaki's time, coffee was retailing at 1 kg around 100 shillings. Now it went back to 10 shillings. And anyone who was supposed to do farming, instead of them doing farming, they now came back to Nairobi to just sit down. The other thing I see in my sector is what I'm calling Amzumbu Syndrome. Apologies if that sounds bad, but let me explain it. Amzumbu Syndrome to me is all the startups in Kenya, you will meet that they are listed, they will call themselves Jumia, M-Pesa, Shikisha, Washisha, anything. Then the name will sound very Kenyan, but 10 out of, if the C-suite contains 10 people, 2 people are or 1 person is the only Kenyan for the sake of approval to get a permit to work. But the other 9 people, the C-suite, people who really make decisions, are not Kenyan. They are Mzungu factor. We have people importing labor every now and then, so that even cleaners, even people like we have an expressway where we are importing people to man these, what are they called? Those charging stations. So the Mzungu factor for me is killing so many businesses, because we are looking at a government that is willing to give foreigners very heavy, so many contracts in favor of in place of the local sector. I look at again the inability of our government to negotiate for better working conditions for its citizens. So that if China today decides to build Kenyan roads, they'll tell you that we'll export 1,000 Chinese with our machinery, with our professionals. But Kenya, when we go to Saudi Arabia and they are told, we are going to sell you oil, and they say, okay, and we are going to sell you coffee, then they don't negotiate for its citizens. Or if they negotiate with the mentality of, can we export these people for us to tax them? So for me is, again, that takes me to the almost second last point. How do we look at overtaxation? There's no country that has ever developed with overtaxation. So that a young person, ukiingia kwa biashara, you meet that the person has 15 licenses from different things, health, they want you to clear your hands, they want you to check your trousers. But at the end of the day, does the license really matter? Because you meet someone with a health insurance, permit, but then the business or the working conditions are not even healthy. So for me, it's the overtaxation. We need to realize the people who are trying to start these businesses are young people. How are we enabling them to access capital? And once they get that capital, how are we enabling them to start businesses? Do we have mentorship programs for them? And that's why I come back to, I agree with Pastor that the bottom up would not work, but as well, looking at it from the point of putting more money, Hustlers Fund, access to credit, but this credit, we shouldn't access credit that we are going again to pay as tax. That is like just getting a loan from China to pay China. So for me, those are my contributions for now. I will come back later as the conversation continues. Thank you so much, Eli.
Thank you so much, Epiphany. It talks about the Muzungu factor in all our companies, that we tend to assume they sound very Kenyan until you get inside and you understand how things work. It talks about access to credit, whereby you borrow money from China and end up paying China. A good example of how these funds that are being created work. But of course, I will be finding out how exactly these monies work, if there are interests that are charged, and if so, are they supposed to be charged? And if they are not supposed to be charged, what is the mechanism of making sure that this fund actually stays alive in order for it to benefit others? I see some hands up, but before I can allow those hands, let me just allow the speakers that haven't contributed yet to come in and give their contribution. And for everyone that is joining in tonight, thank you so much for joining from whatever location you are at. We are talking about the unemployment crisis and by extension, the cost of living. We understand that our generation or our people that cannot create possibility to earn a living end up having issues for them to be able to have that purchase power. And therefore, as a reflex, we have the cost of living as part and parcel of our conversation. Allow me to bring in Isaiah. And Isaiah, this is your moment, sir.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure, sir. Kindly proceed. And thank you for coming in.
No, thank you very much, Eli. This is a very interesting conversation. And as I listened to the contributors, I immediately thought it would be really helpful if we had a framing around and a shared understanding about what actually is unemployment rate and what is the current unemployment crisis, particularly if you situate it globally. I mean, as you all know, this is not a situation that is just affecting Kenya. I think in the wake of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine and a bunch of other global trends, this has been, it's one of the biggest crises all across the world. And so Kenya is doing badly, but it's not actually the worst. I think we are doing even better than South Africa and a bunch of other countries. And so I just wanted to situate that into the conversation, because I think it's helpful to understand that it's a big problem and it's everywhere. And it is so pervasive, as you said, Eli, that it then affects whether we are able to put bread on the table or not, hence the whole cost of living question. I wanted to talk a little bit in a way to sort of progress the conversation as it has started. Because for me, I think the key question to ask is, now that we have this horrible rate of unemployment in our country, how do we deal with it? I do very much agree with the colleagues that have said we need to interrogate our education system and things related to that. But I wanted to propose a couple of other thoughts, because I think for me, one of the most important thing to do in terms of at least decreasing unemployment in Kenya is to grow the Kenyan economy. I think that is where we go wrong. I think our economy has suffered over the last few years. I mean, if you could trace it back to the policies of World Bank and IMF, if you remember, there was a point in time when these global Bretton Woods institutions implemented policies all across the world, particularly in developing countries, that denied these countries to grow their economies. And so for me, I think we need to go back to that question. How do we grow our economy? What is the key factor in our economy? In Kenya, I think it all boils down to things like agriculture and things that might not necessarily be what we are training our young people for. And I do agree, absolutely, we need to train for the economy. We need to train people so that they're able to contribute to the economy, and we need to adjust our education system to that end. I do not necessarily feel that our education system is that bad. I have seen how Kenyans are geniuses in terms of how they come out and grow their entrepreneurial skills and things related to that. So I think there is the education and the training bit, but there is also the socialization around what is employment. When I went to school in the 80s and in the 90s, I studied education, by the way, in KU. And when I graduated in 99, at that point in time, President Moi had done crazy things to the government to the level that they couldn't employ teachers. And I remember graduating and then just going back home because the TSC wasn't hiring anybody. And I had to go back to school to study journalism to be able to fit the market. And I think there is something to that that is really, really a mess. We have so many graduates who've studied, taken the time to study, and then come out into an economy that doesn't absorb them. And I think we need to look into that. The third point I wanted to make is, what do we do then for those at the very bottom of the barrel who are not supported by the economy, as it were? For me, I think we need a stronger social protection and social safety net policies and structures. And this is where, for me, I think the bottom-up economy could work. If it starts with the idea that we are looking at the people who've been left behind by the economy, those that haven't been employed because they dropped out of school, girls who got pregnant and were not able to go to school. So I think there should be a policy by the government to also look at those that needs to be lifted. And I think this is where the investment should go, so that nobody is left behind. Lastly, I do think for an economy to grow, for training to be appropriate, for social protection to be dealt with, we need to deal with the greed of our leaders. The inequality in Kenya it's almost like a sin, man, because you see how much a politician earns compared to how much a teacher earns. It's profoundly, it's so different that you can't really look at that and think that there is no problem. And I think and I hope this government will look into that, deal with the inequalities, introduce policies that could lift those that are at the bottom, go back to agriculture, go back to sectors that are very, very interesting, like the IT sector that a colleague has spoken about, and then deal with this thing from several ends. I don't believe that government is the one only that grows economies. At the end of the day, if the private sector is thriving, that is how employment grows. If the agriculture sector is thriving, that's how employment grows. So I think that for me would be something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. And I know someone that will back the agriculture discussion is none other than Kamwana, who is going to speak, followed by Maurice, and thereafter we'll take another round. Kamwana, I don't want to talk so much about what Isaiah has presented, but of course, very interesting conversation coming out there about the number of graduates that we have working with brown papers, hoping to secure jobs, but there is none close to that. And therefore, the misery continues. Kamwana, how can we improve this situation? That will be my question to you as you come in with the presentation.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you, Epiphany, for recognizing me. I guess I've learned a lot from you. You've been a great mentor. And I guess the speakers who've spoken, I must really appreciate your input onto the topic. But I'll just begin by basically defining, because Isaiah, that's what he was talking about, what unemployment is. I guess on a layman's language, it will be people actively seeking for jobs, but they can't find those jobs. And definitely, what we learned before these, maybe in our classrooms, are there are three types of unemployment: structural, there will be seasonal and frictional. And these are different kind of employments that I don't want to delve into, because there are things that maybe most of us know about. But if you are able to read about the three types of unemployment, then you will sometimes understand that the parameters that are used to measure unemployment will actually differ. And I want to agree with Isaiah that actually we're not doing bad as a country. Imagine we're doing better than countries like France, Egypt, one of the most of the very developed countries in the world. Kenya is doing well compared to those countries, because I can tell you a country like France, the unemployment rate stands at 8%. I mean 8%, that is. Then of course, South Africa, the unemployment rate stands at around 30%. I guess 34% to be precise. That can tell you that Kenya is quite doing well, but Kenya is at the average standard of the world unemployment. If you check at the global world unemployment, you'll find it that it's around 6.4% compared to Kenya, which is in 2022, because in 2021 we were at around, if my statistics serves me right, 5.7 or 5.6. But in 2022 we are at around 7%, which is a very high increase, as CD1 for that matter, for those who can do the statistics. And it worries me, but it doesn't worry me that much, because of course there were other many factors. COVID-19 just hit us, some few months or years ago. Of course, we have the crisis to do with, I don't know, Russia, the oil industry, and so many other things. So we had a lot of companies doing a lot of, release of the employees. So there were so many other external factors that we could not control as a country that contributes to unemployment. So I would say that you're not doing bad, but you're not doing well as compared to what we have as a country, because Kenya is a country endowed with a lot of resources that if they were to be fully maximized, then we can actually reduce that rate of unemployment to around maybe a number like 3%, because there is a possibility to do that, because given all the resources we have. And I said this from a point of information, because I today had an opportunity to interact with some people in the agriculture sector, where I actually have a lot of passion on, and there were two people who works with Bayer. One works with Bayer and the other one works with their club. And they were telling us that it's a pity that this country with very good soils and a lot of rainfall, for them, they will say that is actually not producing enough for its own people. And they were doing this in comparison to what is happening in the maize market. But so that I did not go so much onto the theories and everything, I want to just put some little input on what Isaiah said on what happens with unemployment is actually more of the economy. If the economy is going through recessions and a lot of other turbulence, then we'll tend to see an increase in unemployment in the country, because it's the economy that actually dictates each and every single thing that happens in a country. Well, this said, now this is where I come in with agriculture. Eli, to answer your question, what will we do? I always said this, and I guess Epiphany has met me saying this, that my modus operandi is that we as a people have the ability to create spaces that we can employ each other. How do I say this? I'll always use an example of who we are right now in this space. We are a group of more than 20 people, if I'm not wrong. All these 20 people present in this space have different skills. We have a pastor, we have a teacher, we have a tech guy, we have someone who's doing agriculture. I mean, we all gifted in different skills. The problem is we do not know how to do the networking. Think about this, Ellie. If we were to identify 5 people here and create a group of 5 each, and give it a time, we have discussions, like first time discussions, and after a period of time, the 5 people can compare the skills they have in, or the resources they have in, and create a pool of resources and do a certain given business venture, be it agriculture, be it tech. So I'll give you an example of agriculture, because that's where I'm best in. As a young person, I did not really seek for employment for that long period of time, because I thought what I have can actually give me an opportunity to create a job for other people. And this is what I always believe in, that Kamwana has land, someone else has the finances, someone else is very good in marketing, someone else is very good in, let's say, sourcing the resources, someone has the implement, someone has a little of something that I do not have as Kamwana. So we bring in all these resources together and we do an acre of land, let's say a short-term crop, because you need to also be very specific on what you want as a young person who's in a country where unemployment is our daily song. And if we are able to identify this and we were able to get the right data, then trust me, whatever venture you decide to get onto, then the success of that venture will be very high. So in agriculture, I tell people that go for short-term season crops. Why? Because if you were to go for maize or something like wheat, then you're likely to lose. But if you go for short-term crops like beans, those that take 3 to 2 months to be ready, then you can do that like twice a year or try 3 times. Then you can get enough capital actually to do other things or even to increase or expand your venture. So basically what I'm saying is we have the ability within us. The problem is we are actively seeking for jobs instead of thinking, what are other options do we have as young people that we can actually create these jobs, or we can create opportunities, and these opportunities can be used to tap so that other people can get, a chance or an opportunity to work with you. I'll tell you that I might not have created a job, but I have created a network, a community that's ready and willing to work. And if you want to follow what I do, each and every single day, I have to do farm visits to different farms. I have to visit and I have to sit down with young people, have a discussion around this agriculture thing, have a discussion about all these community ones. And as you do these also, you have to learn something different, that what happens is that we do not lack the skill. We lack the ability to use that skill to produce something that can be used by other people or someone else to gain some space or latitude to be a better person. But if we don't do this, because it's the economy, you're inducing something new to the economy. If you do agriculture, or if you decide to go to tech or real estate, you're inducing something else onto the economy. And if you induce things onto the economy, what happens? Even in agriculture, if we take some hormones and induce it to crops, let's say vegetative ones, then you'll see your crops tomorrow, growing more, vegetatively doing well. That's the same thing. If a group of people keep on doing something in a certain given line, then the economy will tend to get better. And if the economy gets better, then we'll have an opportunity to have spaces for young people to get onto, and these will provide them with employment. But early, so that I can rest my case and probably just listen and answer questions if there will be. The problem here is not really the question of can we get jobs. The problem is, are we willing to go to an extent of seeking not jobs, but be innovative and inventive enough to see what we have as an opportunity to expand the little, using the network we have with other people to create a space where we can grow and mentor other people so that we can have a space to do other things apart from jobs or even businesses or something else. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Kamwana, on your eloquence in that issue. And to answer your question, yes, we are willing. Everybody's creating an opportunity to work. That's why most of us are dancing on TikTok as a form of employment, I believe. But again, on a lighter note, though, Maurice Ndole from Ndole Media, kindly your moment, sir, as you speak. I will equally be expecting Hamasi to pick his microphone. He's one of our main speakers tonight. And then we'll take a round of questions and actually propose solutions to these issues. Maurice.
Hi, everybody. I do apologize. I've been trying to join and I'm in the middle of business. I'm one of those unlucky few who are in the US. Not unlucky necessarily, but my time zone over here is right in the middle of business. So it's kind of difficult for me to really sometimes commit because I'm getting phone calls from clients and stuff. Anyway, so the topic of the day, very, very, very relevant topic to what's going on in Kenya. Actually, something that we need to start discussing, and I'm hoping that maybe the powers that be can come in and listen in to some of the ideas that are being proposed over here. I really like what Isaiah said, especially listening to the whole idea of allowing the private sector to take over creating that enabling environment that is going to allow people to innovate and to create jobs, give them some security so that if they invest in something, they can get some tax advantages. They don't lose their money. Cut down on interest rates on borrowing so that whenever people borrow, they don't have to pay an arm and a leg on interest rate. A friend of mine just returned from Kenya, and she told me that she saw a billboard which was announcing a mortgage rate at 11.5%. And that was really, really like a good deal. That was, they had to put it on a billboard. That's a terrible deal. If you're gonna borrow money and then you have to pay have to pay 11% in interest rate, that makes that borrowing very expensive. So there are all those little things that we can do right now. The government can help. They can. I mean, it has to be determined by the market. I am an entrepreneur myself, and I've enjoyed the benefits of doing business in America. And one of the things that really distinguishes the U.S. with other countries is they really promote business. They, I mean, if you're working a job and the amount of taxes they are collecting from you is almost sinful, to borrow from Isaiah again, compared to what the tax breaks and deductions they're giving to people who are actually starting businesses. So we can look at systems like those. It has to be equitable in the way they promote it and the way they do it, so that it does not starve the government from the much needed revenue to promote social services. So one thing that Kenya has done, which I really, really appreciate and really excites me, and I hope that the new government is going to enhance on it. I didn't support the incoming government because I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to do that. But the infrastructure building in Kenya is fascinating. Kenya has just leapfrogged over every country in the world. They've built roads, they've expanded the country, they've allowed people from all over the place to be able to develop. And those are just some of the few tricks. I mean, infrastructure, building of roads are automatically going to mushroom businesses. Another thing that we have done very well is access technology. Right now, you can conduct business, Kenyans can conduct business with anybody across the world. That is not true for every African country, but the government, the Jubilee government, to their credit, did that very well. They expanded the space, they enabled innovation, and we have a lot of innovators in Kenya who are actually thinking of ideas, including dancing on TikTok. As Eli just made a joke about it. I mean, those kind of innovations and those kind of creativity are what's going to move us forward. We are also lucky again because we are a very young country. The median age for Kenya is 23. At 23 years old, we have a very, very energetic bunch of people. So the human resource availability in Kenya, the decent education that we give, and the access to technology and infrastructure, are all those coming in to create this environment which can enable Kenyans to work with any part of the world to grow and reduce unemployment. There is a proposal by the incoming government about the Hustler Fund. It's actually a fascinating idea. I think it's if implemented right, in terms of they have to figure out a way to make sure that that money is just not being given to people who just send a proposal that is not that does not have any thought behind it. So if we are to use that kind of fund to promote businesses that have actually started establishing themselves, I mean, we can have somebody who has already a startup which has already done some research and they've put some structures in place. All they need is a leg up to get to maybe the next stage and to start doing employment. That would help. And those kind of availabilities and things like those, if done right, they will be able to reduce unemployment. They'll get Kenyans to be more creative in employing themselves and not relying on the government to find jobs for them. The government needs to get out of the way and allow the citizens to lead the way. But we have one problem. There is one big problem, and this is a big problem that Kenyans have to face. There was a troubling survey that came about that I became aware of, that Kenyan youth said that corruption is not a big deal to them, that is something that they think as long as somebody makes their money, they don't care how they make their money, and it is what it is. The thing about it is, if we don't take control of corruption, we're not going to spread out this opportunity. There's going to be a very big divide between the people who have and the people who don't have. And that is going to create a nation which is always unstable, because as long as a vast majority are poor, living below poverty line, the people at the top are always going to be insecure because we cannot control crime. All these social problems are going to be a problem to deal with. So we need to really figure out a way to handle corruption. Corruption, by the way, is actually a euphemism, and we need to start calling it by the right name. I was on a Twitter space recently with Okiya Omtata, and he correctly described it as theft of public resources. So if we do not take care of, figure out a system to curtail this vice, I think Kenya is going to have problems for many years to come. And how does corruption come? Corruption comes about when the government is not keen about, first of all, stamping it. They don't have policies in place which punishes people who engage in theft of public resources. They don't have clear processes that discourages theft from public resources through maybe giving tenders to their families, engaging in insider trading within the government and things like that. There's so many examples which are all very relevant in Kenya that we need to take care of. So I'm going to end there. I think for the young people in Kenya, it's a fascinating time to be a Kenyan. We have everything going for us. We are the kings of Africa. I mean, people talk about the Jew of Africa being Rwanda. I think they're confusing themselves. Rwanda's economy is not even a tenth of Kenya's economy. So we have everything going for us. We just have to do it right and not move backwards. And one way of doing that is we're going to have to hold the new government feet to the fire.
Wow, Maurice Ndole, you have come and you have unleashed and such amazing and intensive knowledge that you're coming and speaking to us. Thank you so much for your contribution. For those who are just joining in, we are discussing and talking about unemployment crisis in our nation. So far, I'm told we are doing well based on the numbers, about 3% or so compared to other countries. And now we are standing at about 7%. But again, Kamwana tells me that is not that bad after all. I see a lot of hands coming up, and I'm impressed because that means guys want to react or rather respond to some of the things that have been raised. And for the ones that are coming in on the listen panel, kindly send me a DM because I have no idea why the chat section is not functioning. Probably guys that are better than me can advise me on that. But I have people who have sent me DMs, and I'll take this opportunity to read them out so that we can engage with their mind and contribution. This is going to be a lengthy one, so I hope you guys can be able to sit back, listen through, and see what it makes of this conversation. Now, the new government is in place, and therefore we need to look at both long-term and short-term strategies. This is coming from Fred, says there are different categories of unemployment, and we cannot lump them together. There are some youngsters who are struggling and they only need a small boost to kick off, like whatever Maurice just said earlier on. This is where the Hustler Fund comes in. This fund is not for everyone. Like we've said, it's like other government opportunities. Not everyone can do business. And therefore, the immediate action from government is to create business environment by creating ease of doing businesses. And this is something I believe is Anari mentioned, where you're trying doing businesses and there's so much bottleneck that will discourage you to start off. So reduction of taxes is one of those mechanisms. This will open up macro investments who will eventually create employment opportunities. Of course, production and agribusiness is also an alternative. Therefore, I suggest that the National Employment Act that is the National Employment Authority Act, should be revisited to expand or streamline its mandate to include local opportunities. Currently, it focuses on foreign employment and also unable to control the challenges that affects our young ones in Saudi Arabia. We saw the other day this lady coming from Saudi Arabia. We heard about her story, and therefore most that are aware about it, it's this young lady that left going to look for greener pastures, but she had to phone home because she was being treated almost like a slave with no food to eat. And therefore, the National Employment Authority Act should be revisited. Look at the directors and the composition of it. It's very wanting. The government has to strengthen the existing institutions and merge others to reduce wastages. Two counties, on the other hand, have failed. The counties, on the other hand, have failed. Agriculture, energy, forestry, water, roads, etc. are all at the county levels. It is high time we refocus on counties for actual service delivery and the now national government to provide policy guidelines. I know that was long, but I had to read it out. I found it interesting. Any quick reaction before I can bring in Brief Scope and Hamasi and then the rest of the speakers? Any quick reaction to that? Anyone? You can speak. Just take the mic and speak. Okay.
Yeah, real quick. So for me, I'm not going to react to what that person has said. I think that is stands by itself. But I just wanted to add it on I see so many hands coming up after I spoke. I just wanted to add that there is also a missed opportunity by the Kenyan governments in the past where they have not really engaged the diaspora. The diaspora spending about $4 billion a year shows that there's more potential there. So that is also another area of opportunity which I think the Kenyan government can tap into readily. I wanted to add that in there.
Thank you, Maurice. Anari, you want to say something before I can allow other speakers? And also, we only have 10 mics, so there are people on the bench waiting. I'll be swapping our speakers, so don't think like you've been thrown off the speaker line, okay? You'll understand that. Anari, quickly.
A quick one, Eli, before I can give someone the mic. Let's talk about the talent. And I think that the last speaker said about missed opportunities. How are we treating our athletes? How are we making sure that, are we promoting talent? And is it a viable option for us to explore with seriousness for us to solve unemployment? Thank you.
Thank you, Epiphany. If you don't mind, I'll put you on the bench as we also look at that, but don't move away from the connection. Great. Sorry, who is speaking?
Godwin.
Okay, Godwin, quickly.
Just a quick agenda on just to add on something on education. I really want to say also on education, I think the government also plays a kind of trial and error when it comes to the education system, because you understand we are coming away from the grade-based system to a competency-based system, but how practical is it, or how does it affect the normal Mwananchi? Because looking at the CBC, in our scenario, it will benefit more the private schools than the public schools. And like in Rwanda, where I read an article today, private schools are having an uncertain future because public schools are doing well. I was talking to a primary teacher the other day, was it yesterday? And you're saying, yes, you're saying we are teaching our students CBC, but are we really ready for it? Because he was giving me an example. They're having a practical, I think it's called stewing, like where kids are being taught how to make stew something. And the requirement is they're supposed to make a meat stew. So you're in a public school in the village, you're asking a parent who cannot afford to put a meal on the table to give a kid meat to bring to school for practicals. How practical is that? And you see, I think our leaders make these decisions, forgetting how other people survive, because most of the leaders, their kids are in private schools and they can manage, But now, what about these other not so well doing families? And then just a quick one. Another reason why I think we're having issues is in Kenya we fight our own enterprises, and I'll give an example of a company I once worked for that is called Cyton. There's a time Cyton was on headlines for all wrong reasons, but I think it's only because people did not understand how Cyton was operating and why its problem started, because banks really fought Cyton. And the reason banks were fighting Cyton realized that there was a gap in the law, and which was a good thing, because they're trying to breach where banks are taking advantage of the citizens, in the sense that, if let's say, because it deals with real estate, if you're a developer, normally many developers go to get funding from banks, and the bank will charge them an interest rate of around 18%. And where does the bank get money? Bank doesn't have money. It gets the money from the deposits people make. But now Cyton came in and say, you know what? We want to remove the middleman, who is the bank. So you come to me as an investor, give me your million bob. Instead of you taking to the bank that is going to give you 6%, I'll give you 18%. But now banks realize if they allow such an institution to strive, many of them will be replicated. And what does that mean? Banks are going to be thrown out of the market. But look on the other side. Banks are not lending money to common mananchi. They're doing businesses with the government. So if you have an enterprise, you want to start a business, for you to get a loan from a bank, it's going to be very difficult, because banks prefer to lend the government, because a government can never default in payment. But now when the model of Cyton came in, where it can now engage investors directly, the banks really fought Cyton until it had to go down. So I think at some point we really need to support our own enterprise and look at issues beyond what I'll call cartels. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Eli.
Godwin, and I hope I can now put you on backstage. We've had a lot of reactions, and Anari, you want to say a quick one, because I'd like the other speakers to now come in.
Kindly. I wanted to react to something that has been mentioned here by a few speakers about the bottom-up economic model. And I want to agree with somebody who said it cannot work. It cannot work in Kenya. I think the initiators of the whole economic model came up with it for political reasons. There's this story of Aliko Dangote. He wanted to put a cement factory in Kenya, a cement plant. And going by what they were saying, a bag of cement would retail at 250 shillings, as compared to the prices that are there in the market today of around 800, 850, 900. But you see, the officials, and by this one, I will have to call them out, because it's the truth. The same people who've been pushing for the bottom-up economic model are the same people who went and asked Aliko Dangote for a bribe. And Aliko got so disgusted because I'm coming to your country, I'm putting up a factory that is going to make cement cheap, that is going to make the cost of construction cheaper, that is going to create employment for so many people, for so many Kenyans. But you want a kickback for me to do so. He was so mad. He moved to Ethiopia, I think, if I'm not wrong, and he put up the factory there. These are the same people who are coming to tell us bottom up or economic or this and this and this and this. I feel like at the end of the day, like I said from my opening remarks, the political goodwill has to be there. And as at now, I don't think it is there. Both in policies and even the support itself. That is what I wanted to say.
Okay. Wow, I didn't see that coming. But again, I will have to ask one of our main speakers, who is Hamasi, to react to that once he has the mic on. But for now, I go quickly to brief scope. I know, Madge, you're there. I see you, Pastor Esmond. Don't be wary. I'll come to you guys. Let's just allow the other speakers that haven't said a word to speak. So we have brief scope, followed by Rosemary, Tabibu, and then you guys will come in with your points before you allow Hamasi to give his contribution. He seems to be in government more than us. Thank you.
Thanks, Eli. What an interesting space. And from the title, it's misleading because you sort of it doesn't sound like an interesting topic, to be honest. But then when you get in the space and you hear the discussion, it's such a rich discussion and it's a needed discussion. I'm so glad to be in it. Good to see Kamwana in the space. Or did he drop? Unfortunately, it seems he did. We do farming, or he's often in my farming spaces. So the unemployment crisis and cost of living. Of course, it's true that the cost of living crisis is an international issue. It's not just in Kenya. But of course, there are things that we can do to mitigate. And cost of living crisis in Kenya is not the same as cost of living crisis in Belgium or the United Kingdom or the United States, right? Like, these are places that have social safety net where, for the most part, people are not going to starve. Unemployment, I think, I don't even know what the exact levels are, but I'm hearing people in here saying that it's actually not as bad as we imagine, because, and I'm guessing they're taking into account the Juakali sector and the informal sector that we don't really talk about. But there are a couple of issues that we need to look at, and that I dare hazard to say that we Kenyans are not willing to consider. First of all, the partisanship, the extreme partisanship, really needs to be a thing that we need to put behind us. Like, we Kenyans have to realize that the political cycle comes every 5 years, but after the political cycle, the government is a government for all Kenyans, and all of us Kenyans, whether you're in support or against, we have to hold that government to the fire, and we have to ensure that that government works for us, because we can't just go vote and then sit back and assume that they're just going to do their job over the next 5 years and everything will be fine. This last government, part of the reason that there's a real cost of living crisis in Kenya, very specifically, is because of the very, very vast difference between the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor, and even the middle class. And there's been a very fast rising Kenyan middle class as a result of the, dare I say, bottom-up policies of the Kibaki government. And, that created a middle class that has continued to grow during these last 10 years of the Jubilee government. Unfortunately, the Jubilee government was a government that sort of was a government of the elite for the elite, that on steroids. Like, so they did a lot that makes Kenya have a high GDP, high levels of growth. The Kenyan skyline, the Nairobi skyline looks amazing. The roads, all of that, the infrastructure, all of that looks amazing. But because it was not being done with the intentionality of ensuring to lift up people right at the bottom, what it has done is that it has created a lot of millionaires from the already existing elite class, and it has also created billionaires of foreigners. The development that happened over the last 10 years was done with no regard whatsoever as to whether the people being enriched were Kenyan or foreigners. And for the most part, in fact, it was foreigners. It was the Chinese. We have contributed a great deal of GDP to the Chinese government. So what do we do? Quite frankly, we need to do things that are difficult, that the Kenyan middle class, that the average person on this platform, on this Bird app, on Twitter, and I dare say even on this space, are not even willing to contemplate. That's my bet. Maybe I'm wrong. So, for example, minimum wage. So the bottom up is a great idea. The Hustler Fund is a great idea, and it's a good start, but it doesn't go anywhere near enough. And I remember, for example, one of the things that they discussed in their manifesto release was an increase of salaries for the police. I'm a political watcher and an avid political watcher, and to me, it was a very clear sort of salvo being thrown at the police to make sure that they sided with the Kenya Kwanza team and that they didn't do anything, for example, during the elections that, I think it was essentially purchasing the police force. But if they do follow through with it, it is something that is needed. But the increase in salaries does not need to be only for the police. In fact, it needs to be for all Kenyans. I argue that the minimum wage in Kenya needs to be no less than 40,000 shillings a month, something in the region of $400 a month. The average middle-class Kenyan, when they hear that, they're like, what do you mean? I can't afford to pay my maid that much. And of course you can't. But who says you need a maid? All of us. There's so many of us here who live in the West. We don't have maids in the West, and we work alongside people who do not have maids in the West. So the fact that so many of us Kenyans are willing to live with slaves in our homes, that's what they really are. We are paying them slave wages. And we are not even willing to push government to raise the standard of living, because until the minimum wage rises to meet the cost of living in Kenya. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back a step, because I was talking about the government of the last 10 years and how the middle class has risen. What that does is that it really raises inflation. It makes things much more expensive, to the point that when you go to Quick Mart now, you can easily spend 30,000 shillings on groceries for a couple of weeks, right? The people that work at Quick Mart cannot even shop there. They have to shop elsewhere. So but most of those basics, it's not even a question of where you shop. Most of those basics, like toothpaste, like those are things that cost the same in Kenya as in New York or in London. So there are things that cost quite expensive, whether you buy them in Quick Mart or at the corner store from the Mama Mboga. And the only way that those can be affordable is if we increase the minimum wage. How do we do that? Of course, I don't suggest doing it overnight. It would not be workable. But it has to be done. It has to be phased in. We could start with, for example, all foreign organizations, all foreign investors, all foreign corporations coming to Kenya have to pay a minimum wage. The other problem with foreign companies and foreign organizations, they don't even pay taxes. They come into Kenya and they negotiate and they're granted. We don't really negotiate. They just come in and say what they're going to do. And on the other side, you have Kenyan officials kind of just check marking whatever it is they're asking for. They argue that when they hire Kenyans, the Kenyan government will be able to benefit from the taxes, from the income taxes that it collects from those people. But that is not enough. Those corporations need to be paying taxes. Foreign corporations do not pay taxes in Kenya. So the other thing is infrastructure. It's great. We've done a great job, with all the infrastructure and the development that has been happening. The big problem with that, though, again, is that all the contracts have been going to foreign corporations. And then lastly, corruption. Of course, corruption is terrible. But the reality is that corruption is actually everywhere. I live in the United States. The House of Congress is extremely corrupt. Donald Trump, just left president, having his home raided by the FBI. Like, there's a lot of corruption everywhere in the UK, in the US, probably less so in the UK. I think they have a pretty tight system of government. But we know former President Sarkozy of France is in jail for corruption. And in the United States and in all these other places, including the UK, the way it happens is via lobbyists and via assignments granted politicians after they have left office, or given to their relatives, to hide the funds. So these things do happen everywhere. So if corruption is everywhere, then what is the big problem? Why is it different in Africa or in Kenya? The difference is that corruption in Kenya happens and those funds are expropriated overseas. So when corruption happens in the United States, those funds still exist here in the United States, and they are circulating in the economy. So they continue to actually develop the economy. And now I'm not saying that we don't need to deal with corruption, but the bigger corruption that we need to deal with is international corruption, the corruption of international corporations. And that is something that, again, the majority of us Kenyans don't even want to talk about, because we are so enamored by the shiny object of looking at the politicians from the rival party that we do not support and calling them out as thieves and as as corrupt, instead of actually looking at the bigger pie of 70% of corruption, which is done by foreign corporations, foreign organizations that come and expropriate our wealth, that come and get contracts through corruption, yes, but and then expropriate the profits, mining, whatever sector, the prices that these foreign corporations pay for anything is nowhere near what they need to be paying. And then lastly, the price of goods, of African commodities, is nowhere near the level that it needs to be. And that includes Kenyan commodities, tea, coffee. And why is that? Because the prices are set in London instead of by a tea produce, by an organization of tea producers, the same way that OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Producer Countries, exists. And if we did that, we could control the prices of our commodities, but we do not do that. The other thing is that even with agricultural produce, quite frankly, given the cost of living and given the price of inputs, if we were to pay our farmers fair prices for their products, in fact, the prices of food in Kenya would be much more than they currently are. And that's something that we need to resolve, whether it is increasing the food prices after increasing salaries, but something has to be done, because it is not, farmers cannot be living and working upside down, essentially, at a loss. So inputs either have to be subsidized as they are in the West, but I don't think that's the best way. I think the best way, because it's not even sustainable even in the West, and we need to empower small scale farmers as well as small scale businesses, and that's what the Hustler Fund is. Thanks, Eli, for the patience and for the very long contribution that I put in uninterrupted. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Wow, Briscoe, that's interesting coming from the agriculture sector, and I think we really need a lot of agriculture people that are interested in this kind of talks, because Briscoe handles them on his spaces every Wednesday. For now, I'm going to cross over to Rosemary. Rosemary is a former broadcaster with Voice of Kenya, and definitely over the years she has gathered a lot of knowledge that will be of impact in this conversation. So as you come in, Rosemary, I know we have so much to cover. So this is the moment I start capping the minutes of presentation to maximum 4. You have 3 minutes to make your presentation and 1 minute to make your conclusion on that, so that Newton, who has listened to most of us, will be able to come in and give us his position as a spokesperson and equally as a youth leader from Kenya Kwanza team. So we'll have Rosemary, followed by Victor, and then we'll have correspondence from the two hands that I see, that is Marge and Pastor Esmond. And finally, Isaiah, where Hamasi will close in with his knowledge and, having seen what we've said and having heard what we've seen.
Okay, right. Eli, let me yield my mic. Call me after, please.
Okay, I will allow Rosemary to do that. That will be great for Victor. Victor, kindly.
Okay, thank you, Eli, the speakers and listeners. This is a pretty good topic to contribute in. So on the crisis and cost of living in our country. So first I'd like to go back a little bit on the education. This is something which I'm very, very passionate about. And one thing, we got the CBC that seems to have discordance between stakeholders in Kenya. So my thinking is that this might be because of the way it was initiated. Most likely, there was no participation across different stakeholders in the education system. And you find that now we have this pull and push between different groups. We have the parents, some of them who are supporting, we have some who are not. So with this, already we can see that we haven't started in a good footing, and it might give our country problems. And if you look back at 844 system, I can say for sure, having been one of the students of this system, it's a pretty good system. It's just that the implementation and enabling of a level playing ground among schools was not initiated across the country. And most likely that's why we have got most people or majority of people not liking the system. But if we had pretty good implementation where all school systems were treated equally with resources, library, laboratories, it would be a good system for the country. Because for those of you who have been outside Kenya and maybe joined university in the United States, for example, you find that we are able to excel because of the good background that we had in our education system back home. So I think the way going forward, the current regime should go back to the drawing board and try to assess, take time, not abolish the CBC, but try and reevaluate between the different systems to come up with a more concrete, more representative that will be able to pull everyone on board. The other thing I think results to this is just the corruption mentality and lack of integrity. So you find that some of the stakeholders who are running the ministry or the Kenya Institute of Education, in some cases you find that people get into those opportunities or those positions through the back door. Somebody does not have a background, maybe the education management systems, and then is elected to lead a ministry, for example. You find that most of the, what comes out as a potential indicators for how the system should be run might be not the right way that most majority of the population wants, and end up misleading the entire ministry to believing that this is a good system. So I think it's high time that we have people who manage these institutions who are qualified to do so and who have got integrity to be able to speak out and let those people who are in government who are like the ministers, like, okay, this is not working. And if you have a minister, you should go into the cabinet, and argue the case. But if you are just going by the system, you'll find like eventually these systems, the programs will fail. And then the other thing if I just talk about unemployment, I think the way the Kenyan system has been shaped over time is that most of us, go to school expecting to get employed by the government. So you find that at the end of the day, once you get out of the university, we expect that the government should absorb us. And you find that the government itself does not have the entire latitude to offer job opportunities. Initially, back in the 90s, you find that teachers, whenever they graduate, they go for teaching practice. And before even they get out, they already have a assignment or schools to go to teach. But that is not the case anymore. So you find that at the end, we have got universities which are channeling out graduates, but we don't have adequate areas of absorbing them for employment. So the approach that I might think should work is for the government to enable good environment, or to create an environment that enable industrialization, innovation, where that these students can be able to come up with new approach. For example, if it's in IT, come up with new systems, new programs, new app. As much as you are seeking employment, but if you are given a stepping stone, for example, with grants, government can have these grants, competitive grants, institution where they put out their notice like, okay, we are in this competition. If you win, you get maybe $1 million shillings to start up a program. And, with doing that, it will encourage innovation. Even in farming, you can create those competitive programs in different counties and say, okay, every county we are going to select 20, youth who are competing in agriculture or horticulture, for example. With good proposal, we are going to fund them. By doing that, you'll create not only job for this individual, but many others who will work under them. So that is way that I expect this government to focus or to put into consideration. Also in higher education. So for me, I'm in higher education, and you find that.
Dr. B, pardon me, at least a minute, because you would like to really finish the conversation on time.
Okay, so I'll just take this minute to talk about the higher education. That's what I think like the Kenyan system need to change, especially when it comes to research. So in most cases, the government provides funding in most of our institutions, and you find that it does as much as, okay, they are helping, but they need to come up with a more robust system that will make it competitive. Like the system in America where we have got the government providing the grants, and then the best of the best are able to compete for that. Then they're given the money to go and do this research. So if you don't encourage competitive bidding, then there will be no room for innovation. So majority of the people will sit back and just do the minimum. But if you encourage individuals and give them incentive, because you find that if you give out grants, you can create like maybe a percentage as it works here, like maybe 30% of the grant. If you get 10 million, maybe 30% goes to your salary. You'll find that people will be competing for those grants and come up with innovative ideas. And with that, they'll come up with patents and things like that, which will enable maybe startup coming up and increases chances of employment. And then the other thing is the brain drain. The government needs to look into that, because I can tell you, we are so many out here. We like to come back home, but there is no equal playing field. So that scares us majority of people from coming back home, because you need to know somebody to be able to excel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. B. And I like the last part that you say there's brain draining happening too much to the West. And the code word there is tell them, mimi ndo nimekutuma, Exactly, that's how it goes. Rosemary, if you're not ready, no problem. I will now invite Pastor Esmond, Marge, then Isaiah.
All right, thank you. A lot has been said. I'll probably cut mine to 1 minute and probably spend time later to write this and share with you, because a lot has been shared that we need probably a few more sessions to cover this. One of the things that I would want to look into is what has been repeated here, because it's based on what people have looked at the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, that unemployment rate in Kenya is 7%. I wish that was true. I honestly wish it was at 7%. We would be doing so well. But those of you who have studied and looked at unemployment and how it's compiled and everything, and look at the current situation in Kenya, there is absolutely no way, and I'm not going to give any responses to that, because I need to study that and look into it a little bit more critically and how that was arrived at. But there is absolutely no way it can be 7%. It's probably over 30%. But that's just, I'm throwing a number there, but I will have to go look into it and probably give a fair response that is more informed and more, it can be 7%. If it was, it will be. And again, I'm comparing it with my understanding of currently in the United States, our unemployment rate is at 3.7%. But economically speaking, when the US is at full employment, and I will tell you what that means, when it's at full employment, it's when it's at 4.6%. If unemployment rate in the US is at 4.6, it means we're at full employment. What that means is anybody who is looking for a job has a job. That's what that means. So any concept and an idea that Kenya is at 7% unemployment rate, my goodness, I would want to get into that school of statistics to understand. That's my first point, to make sure that we look into that and probably give a more critical response. The other point that I wanted to contribute, and probably it's more into reaction to most of what other people have shared, how we're going to resolve this issue of unemployment crisis. Obviously, looking into our education system is more of a long-term solution, but not an immediate solution. Kenyans are hurting. Kenyans are dealing with a lot of unemployment and challenges. I think we need an immediate quick fix to help our people before we start looking at reviewing the education system, which is important that we have to and review it and see how that's fitting into it. But I don't really think, in my opinion, that could be wrong. I don't think there was anything wrong with our education system. Most of us who went through the system of education in Kenya, and I mean, I went through the 844 system. I was educated as a teacher, graduated, and all that. And I can see some of my classmates here on the line. I'm glad they've joined. But when we moved into another environment, we're able to adjust and adapt very quickly and thrive, I can tell you. So I honestly don't think, and in fact, we were doing much better, sorry to say, than even our American counterparts in most of those classes. And I think most of the guys in Germany and other places can be a witness that that is true to most of you, the way that's happened. So I don't think our education system was necessarily bad, though something was probably needed. The third point I wanted to make is that, friends, I think it's important also to begin by, first of all, reviewing that the people that we, so I guess my time is up. So, all right, so I just want to make those points quickly, but I probably don't have time now, but in the future, I'll probably add more things in relation to that, because I think a few other governors, like my governor in Kisia, started something else. The aspect of ghost employees, that's a quick fix of evaluation. How many people that we think are employed, and the list of people we're seeing, but they're not even working, they're not there. How do we clean up the systems to ensure that number one, there are actually people who are being productive and start measuring some level of productivity? Finally, and very finally, let us take KQ out of having government shares. Let's take out of KPLC. Let's take out of these other companies, major companies that are making losses for no good reason. Let's privatize them. There's no reason for the government to be on these companies, and let's have competent people run. I don't know what Kenyan government have to do with KQ, and Kenyan people keep saying that's the pride of Kenya. I've never even heard of that in an economic sense and language. We will discuss that another time, but I appreciate the opportunity, Eli, and I appreciate everybody's contribution. There's a lot more that has been shared that I feel I would have to probably draft something and share with you.
Thank you, Pastor Esmond. Let me take the mic now, if you don't mind, Eli.
Kindly proceed, Rosemary.
Thank you so much for the kind words and the introduction. Sorry, I was multitasking. In this part of the world, it's only 4:20 here in New York. The topic of today, unemployment crisis and cost of living, really a very
Rosemary, pardon me, Rosemary. Is it possible to go to a more silent space? Then we really want to listen to you, because the conversation is interesting and we would like to hear everything you're saying, if you don't mind.
Was there a background noise as I was speaking?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of noise and activities around you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, proceed.
Yes, I was saying that the topic is really pertinent, especially at this particular time when we've just now concluded our elections. And really, we're looking forward to what the new government is going to do. First and foremost, of course, we've done congratulations. The president-elect is being sworn in on Tuesday. We congratulate him on that and look forward.
Rosemary, I'll have to put you on the bench for a moment so that you get a silent place, and then we can speak to you kindly.
No problem.
I'll come back. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Marge, if you can make it quick, followed by Isaiah, and then we finally allow Hamasi to speak to us, and then probably some short contributions from those ones that have a mic. I see Tabibu requested one, and Hannah, I'll give a quick one. But for now, let's go to Marge, followed by Isaiah, then Hamasi.
Hi, I wanted to address a few issues also. One of them is that there's a previous speaker who spoke about most people in Kenya believing in white collar jobs. There was a recent example whereby the newspaper brought in an example of a young man who has a master's degree and could not find any job. And then he went on saying that now he's forced to take care of his father's cattle. And everyone was very shocked and thinking, oh my God, how could this happen to him? But I was thinking, you're sitting there with a master's degree and you're watching over, like, I think he said more than 20, animals. He could sell some and start a business. So I would also like to encourage young people to not only look for formal employment, but rather also use whatever they have, because I found it really strange that also most Kenyans just found that he's in problem, but they didn't realize that actually this is a privileged guy, because there's some people who lack those degrees, but they don't even have such number of of wealth, if I may say that. So unemployed youths should find ways of getting self-employed and not until they get those. If they really want to get the white collar jobs, then they should start earlier, with something else. Now, to my next point, I'll ask a brief question before I talk about this. The Hustler Fund, is it refundable or not? Are they paying back?
I can answer that. It is repayable. It's not a grant. It's a loan. And of course, during the campaign, there's going to be campaign promises and the reality. So during the campaign, they said it would be interest-free with a small fee, with a small administration fee. In reality, I don't know that it's sustainable as interest-free. So I think it will probably be repayable at a small interest rate of maybe 3% APR or under 5% APR, which is still very reasonable, but that it is repayable.
Okay, so because previously in the previous government, there was also a youth fund for, I think, people below 35 years of age, and the uptake was very, very poor, and so it would be nice also if the people who are having access to these funds, even right in the village, they are really informed about it. But I think it should be made compulsory that the beneficiaries actually pay back, because we have a culture in Kenya of kupenda vitu za bwerere. Sorry if we have speakers here who are not Swahili speakers, but it's not sustainable to have to get money and not pay back, because it's like you're depleting the funds. And I even see students who going online and asking that they do not pay the HELB loans. So I think also as young people who should also have this responsibility and think about sustainability of the funds that are provided to us. And previous speaker also spoke about corruption. This is actually also preventing diasporans from investing in Kenya. And there's another one who spoke about Muzungu factor. Is it? Yes. And so this one is really a problem. You find that when you're in Kenya, currently in the market trying to compete with competitors, which is normal in the market, but when they're Asians or Caucasians, you find that Kenyans would give them more priority. So you even looking for licenses, you're not going to get them because the Mzungu is going to be given an opportunity. So the government should also look at this aspect. And there was social support that was spoken about. this is very important, and not only the social support in the sense of social empowerment, but more so in the health area, because a healthy community is functioning and can really also bring about a healthy economy. Now, this starts by very basic things. I know it's unimaginable. Many people cannot imagine that there are villages without boreholes. So, but then somebody would wonder, you say, okay, I'm going to pay school fee for this child, but what about just having a borehole per village, or even in a chief center? So what's it sounds like very rudimentary, but you find that some people who do not have access to water will not go to school, and when they don't go to school, they have no education, and then they don't have the qualification, they don't get jobs, and it's like it goes for generations like that. So just that needs to be taken care of. Eli, I see your hand is up. I'm rushing. And the infrastructure, Kenya is wasting a lot of time on traffic jams. So I see that they're building a lot of roads, but I don't think that's the direction they should take. They should be building, they should be ensuring that we have like short trains, short distance trains that bring people from like Kitengela to town. I don't know where to town, so that these people, like, you could transport them just once in the morning with the rush hour and wherever. But otherwise, the jams that we have, I mean, it's horrible. When I'm in Kenya, I sometimes just afraid of going to town. But these are working hours. It cannot be that people are waking up at 4 or 5 only to be in the office at timely. So here they should really improve on bringing in more trains and ensuring more Kenyans can go to work that way easier. Now, on education,
Madge, I really have to ask you to wind up because
I'm winding
it
up,
was
but
supposed to be a minute.
these points are very important. Normally, I'm very
It's because I like other speakers to come in, and Hamasi would like to respond to some of the issues you've raised. It's getting a bit late, so kindly make it fast. Thank you.
I invested time here, Eli. Otherwise, I would have other things to do too, so the points are important. Now, somebody was talking about KCSE. In Germany, it's lacking one year of mathematics. So it would be nice if somebody would at least make the Kenyan education, or the incoming government should make Kenyan's education competitive in Europe, that you would compare with, okay, Uganda and Rwanda, when they come over with their high school certificates, they really do not have to wait a year longer. So you see, it gives them, they have the form 6 that we used to have. So the form 6 is better. So there we need a betterment, because the CBC is even worse. I saw a clip of children learning how to sell Sukuma Wiki. I don't know how that is relevant. And finally, Eli, finally, diaspora engagement, that I want to ask Newton, what is the incoming government thinking about? How are they thinking of engaging the diaspora? Because we are also a source of investment, and they need to also let us know how they want to engage us so that we can make a very informed decision on if we are investing in Kenya or not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madge, for that. I see Rosemary decided to go ahead. Rosemary.
Tell me if it's not noisy where I am now, because I think it's better.
Kindly proceed. Kindly proceed.
And because of time, really, I just wanted to make one point, and really to thank you for holding this race. And I like what Kamwana really brought up, and Anari. When we talk of an employment crisis, we tend to think of looking for jobs, looking for employment. I think what we should be focusing on now, for me, the government is in place, an enabling environment. Some of these funds that Marge has talked about, whether they are grants or or loans, at a small interest, or low interest in terms of what Kamwana really was advancing. How many, I mean, I do remember in 2020 with all of us at home with the pandemic, we were told the areas to focus on was tech, and I think Epiphany also talked about that, and Kamwana, and of course we were told about agriculture. How many of us are really ready to go back down to the rural areas, to the village, and get down and dirty in terms of producing food, because food will always be needed. And with the crisis, with the Ukraine and what have you, this is what we should be focusing on. I'm really enlightened when I see young people like Kamwana. In fact, I'm following him, and I would like to pick up that conversation. We who live in the US, I mean, there are also other different means of trying to fundraise. How many of us have really tapped into GoFundMe, the Kickstarter? I know it's complicated, but how many people are ready to look at those possibilities in terms of even just fundraising, not at home, but the enabling environment is there. Hatutashurutishwa, hatutatishwa, and we are able to really create employment, generate employment, as opposed to looking for employment. And I do remember when we were during the campaign season, and I went on these discussions, I think Eli, you also joined me. A lot of youth, were really feeling like, oh, there's no need to participate in this whole thing. We're unemployed, we're at home. How many of them have really created employment for themselves or joined hands with others? So as we talk about an employment crisis and cost of living, yes, the cost of living is astronomical. And, I am not going to say that we are doing well in Kenya. No, we are doing well as far as what is concerned. Let's do better. Let's push ourselves harder to do better. Let's not compare ourselves with anybody else. Just keep pushing so that at least we're a beacon of hope and we are able to translate, our hard work into something else. I know we are envied by even the countries around us in East Africa, in Africa, for some of the things that we do. So this was just my little 1 minute, contribution, but I just wanted to listen in and really check in all the proposals that are coming in. And I hope, I did read somewhere, did you get a message from the president-elect or something, Eli? I yield the mic back to you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. I will answer to that at a later stage. Isaiah, please make it short. I know you've been having your hand for too long and you could be having a lot of contributions. I will allow you a maximum of 2 minutes so that we can listen from Newton to respond to the questions we've raised. And thereafter, I know there are a lot of other people on the line. I'll give this session a maximum of another 26 minutes. So in total, we have 26 minutes to complete the session. To you, Isaiah.
Thank you. I will start by responding to a couple of issues that have come up. I think the figures about unemployment are accurate. I just looked at the database of the International Labour Organization. What we need to remember is that it is a percentage of those people who are seeking employment or who are employable. And as you remember, our population is very young. I think nearly 40% of Kenyans are below the age of 14. So it changes the numbers quite significantly. And to respond to Marge, absolutely. I think learning to sell Sukuma Wiki now is the skill that you will need to learn to sell cryptocurrency. So I think it's absolutely relevant in the current world. What I wanted to say, which I think is important, is I really think we need to interrogate this bottom-up economy conversation. Just for us to remember that this wasn't Ruto's idea. This is something that is well developed in economic and development discourses. It's quite a big chunk of analysis and research around this within development theory. So I don't think bottom up is a problem. It is how it is implemented. It's about moving capital to the grassroots. It's about moving technology, banking, everything to this agriculture, small scale agriculture and things related to that. It's quite microeconomical in nature. My thesis would be, I think bottom up economy is absolutely relevant in Kenya, where we have massive inequality, and those in the bottom are left out of the economy, and therefore changing this policy will be helpful. But I don't think we should forget the macroeconomy and the top-down type of economic system. So maybe it's going to be a hybrid between a bottom-up and a top-down approach to make things work. My last point, which hasn't been said as such, is really related to the debt burden that we have in Kenya. It is also astronomical. I just looked at some figures now, and I understand that Kenya is repaying up to 30% of its revenue to pay interests, not even the debt itself, just interest. So I think there is a long way to go, and unemployment and high cost of standard of living and all those challenges are really a culmination of all these problems coming together. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you so much, Isaiah, for being a gentleman. And I know, Hamasi, you've been on the bench for quite a long time. I would like to invite you to speak to us and possibly respond to some of the questions that have been raised. Meanwhile, for the people that have already requested the mics, I will ease out some microphones so that if you have a question for Newton, you can ask later on. To you, Sir Hamasi.
Thank you so much, Eli. Good evening, everyone. My name is Newton Hamasi, as Eli rightfully mentioned it. Now, I'll just be brief. I've heard a lot of things that have been raised from the panelists and the listeners as well. One thing I would like to state is, as a country, we have been used to elections, then to political battles. That is one. But this time round, as Kenya Kwanza government, we look forward to having a focus on our energies directed towards growing and making our economy work, and just putting the energy in the development agendas back to its toes. That is something that we are so critical to see happen, because all the issues that are being raised here right now about unemployment crisis and the cost of living, we have been in this cycle of, we have an election, and then after the election, we have political battles, we have all this demonstration left, right, and center, and we have issues that delay the country going back to its development track that was set from the previous regime. We pray and we hope that with the situation we are in right now, it's going to trigger an economical progress compared to the other years. If you can notice, if you live in Nairobi, you can realize that people are back to work. People are back to businesses. People are back to make economical value from the time that is available. The last 3 days since the Supreme Court announced itself on this matter, we have experienced a surge in the traffic levels within the city, and the activities happening both from the small scale traders and the big enterprises. We have seen some economical spur of growth and just activities happening around it. But to achieve all these things, we need peace. And peace is a critical component of any country that fails to progress. So in regards to that particular angle, we believe that as a country, we have made a step forward. And if you analyze critically, the challenges we have around unemployment and the high cost of living is just pegged on priorities. In a simple word, I will summarize it in the word priorities. If you listen to the President-elect William Ruto when he was on BBC or CNN, I believe, he mentioned and said clearly that as a country, we have priorities. And one of the key priorities on William Samoei Ruto's table is the cost of living. And this cost of living is increasing because of excuses that the previous regime that is ending on 13th has been basing on to ensure that they continue to tell the narrative of Ukraine doing this, Ukraine doing that, the impacts of the other countries, the world economics affecting our own. And he was very categorical. He said, look, as a country, we can do things better. we can do things to spur growth. We can do things to create employment and not cry every day. One basic factor that he brought on board was, as a country, we have had personalized power regimes whereby they think their own ideas are the ones that make sense and the common person's ideas are the ones that don't make sense. And he gave a very good example. He said, look, as a country, we have 4 billion. We go invested in a gun manufacturing company. This gun manufacturing company employs 100 people. And the other side, you use 160 million to create a job that employs 600 to 1,000. So from where he sits, he believes that the cure to the unemployment that we have in this country, one, is creating labor-intensive policies. In that, we put a lot of focus on building industries, manufacturing companies, and all those entities that are going to be labor-intensive, that are going to create employment to the people of Kenya, especially the young people. We can tap into their knowledge. We can tap into their abilities. An example he gave is that the government is going to make an effort to create an internship program. And after this internship program, we ensure that after this student or this particular graduate finishes his internship, he can be able to access a quality job from the industries that have been created with a labor-intensive mindset. And on the same aspect, he has mentioned in regards to the diaspora people, because one, you understand that a lot of young people from here, they try to go and seek better opportunities outside there. But we have seen it from the story from the lady who comes from Uasin Gishu, who was brought in from Saudi Arabia. There are no greener pastures outside there per se. But those ones that are there, you find we have a limitation in regards to the accreditation and endorsement of our Kenyan qualification academics and skills. So to that effect, he has said he's going to facilitate the accreditation of all these academic qualification between here and the countries abroad, so that our graduates from this country are able to access quality jobs from the countries outside there. If you can recall, there's a time an issue erupted in regards to the nurses who are going to the UK, that they could not speak fluent English, they could not do a few things, but yet those guys need the nurses. So he promised during the creation or the modeling of the Diaspora Manifesto, and he mentioned clearly that he is going to streamline a way that our education here is in relation to whatever is needed outside there, so that our graduates are able to go get quality jobs from outside there, because that will also increase investments back in the country. And that one will also spur the thought of just having a robust arrangement between the diaspora and the country. Another thing that he mentioned in regards to the diaspora community is that he is going to decentralize some of these services that the diaspora people need, so that they don't have to strain to have these things done. In regards to the economy, you've heard him talk about the bottom-up model. And this bottom-up model, we believe it's going to be a quick fix for the challenges that we have as a country. Because one, I heard someone talk about access to credit. Young people are restricted to access this credit. And yes, there was a challenge that someone posed, why don't young people create these employments? But if a young person starts a company, he has KRA on his neck or on her neck. He has these regulatory bodies on their neck. And that is where he came in through the Youth Manifesto and mentioned that he is going to spur growth through the availing the Hustlers Fund. This Hustlers Fund, for you to access it, you will not require to have these guarantors. You must have had experience of 10 years or 3 years for you to get this loan. No, it is going to be unconditional. It is going to be easily accessible, so that we can spur the small scale traders to ensure that they can be able to access this affordable credit that is going to enable them to grow from one particular point to another. But again, something else that is very critical in regards to achieving all these goals is that as a country, we have had challenges. An example is Keroche. Keroche has gone through tremendous barriers. And yet, this is a company that also was offering employment to over 2,000 employees. And KRA were so adamant to listen to this person because they have a different political stand. And William Ruto has consistently said, no one is going to be victimized because of his political stand. Because the moment you victimize investors in this country because of their political stand, who suffers? It is us as common Kenyans. It is us as young people who are educated and we are seeking for this employment. You can imagine how many people were laid off because of the Keroche issue. And from his angle, he says, look, I am going to sit down with the investors so that we can agree on the best way forward. Because we cannot have a regulatory body that infringes on the rights of the investors and at the expense of those particular Kenyans who are employed. And that is why I said, as a country, we will be so far because we are rich, both in capital and both in human resource.
Hamasi, because I would like to some specific questions for you, based on what we have been able to discuss in this conversation tonight, includes things like industries that have been not performing. We've seen close down of the likes of Mumias Sugar, or almost zero operation, if I call it. I think now it's as good as dead. If we talk about Webuye Pan Paper, we know it was the biggest, if not in Africa, but East Africa, that was supplying us with paper. So what is going to happen to industrialization? Because we cannot talk about job creation if we are not manufacturing. What is the bigger picture here, sir?
And that is why I'm saying, Ellie, from the Kenya Kwanza government perspective, we want to support these particular institutions, these particular industries. You mentioned about Mumias Sugar. You know, Mumias Sugar, we have been taken in circles, just things being done for political mileage and not for the economical benefit of the people who live in that particular vicinity. And we have had our president-elect say that in regards to the Mumias Sugar issue, it is an issue that is going to personalize it and make sure that this particular industry is passed back. Because you look at the challenges like Kenya Revenue Authority, they're on their neck, they want this particular money. But now you don't see the other bigger picture of this company running up and just growing the processes that happen within the company to ensure that it is productive. Look at the Nzoia Sugar Company. We had the president go there. He preached that he's going to channel 50 billion, 10 billion to that particular company so that it can be able to be productive. But right now, if you go there, they are not even milling the sugar. The company is closed. He went there, he gave, 55 million for salaries for 1 month. That is not a sustainable solution. And that is why William Ruto has said, from where he sits, he's going to ensure that all these industries that have fallen short, they're able to spur back and just start running slowly. Look at the Rivertex company in Uasin Gishu. He's going to make an effort and ensure that all these things run based on priority basis, because we have had scenarios where money is diverted into projects that are not financially visible. And from where he sits, he says, look, I am going to look at this thing from a financial feasibility. He's not just going to invest. And after he has invested, he will say, look, this is the way to go. And something else I can just say is in regards to the pending bills. A lot of people have done business with government, but payments have delayed. Not because there's no money, because this money has been misappropriated. You heard the other day he mentioned this Langata Stadium. Langata Stadium that was the military stadium that was constructed the other day at a cost of almost 15 billion. This money was not budgeted, but where did it come from for it to be able to construct a stadium? Yes, Kenyans need facilities for football and all those particular sporting activities, but this money was not budgeted for. Where was it diverted from to go to this particular development? Another example is the NMS. Because the NMS of the creation of the national government, you saw it, they were paying suppliers within 2 weeks of supply, Eli. But right now, if you go to Nairobi County, you find they have 9 billion worth of pending bills. And yet, this money was channeled through NMS to carry out continuous projects because there were specific individuals who are benefiting from them. And that is something that William Ruto is determined to cut across all the departments of the government, so that at the end of the day, we realize that the need of the Kenyan person, of the Kenyan people, is key and core to the running of government. You understand, Eli, that William Ruto went across all the 49 constituting the counties. That is 47, no, 48, 47 here. And then the 48th one is the diaspora one. And he went personally listening to the people from those particular regions on what are their needs, what are their priorities. And moving forward, I believe that as a country, we are going to see a transformational change that has never been experienced before. Because right now, we are looking at the need of the person down there, Eli, and not just coming up with policies just to force them on the Kenyan people, because some of them, they don't need it. If you look at the coastal region, they want to do well in the tourism industry. When you go there and tell them, okay, fine then, you want to do tourism, let us shift the transactions of the port to the dry land. How does it help Mombasa? Why don't you let these operations happen in Mombasa? And because Nairobi is the capital city, we spur people around Nairobi, let's say like Thika, Murang'a, to do agriculture. And this agricultural produce comes to Nairobi, and then it is shifted from Nairobi to the coastal region through the SGR, so that we just decentralize these operations. We cannot say that we have decentralized the government and still we are still centralizing most of the operations back to Nairobi.
Great.
And
I'll interrupt a little bit so that you can do some follow-up questions. I see hands coming up. I will allow them to either give a response or correspondence to what you said, but I will ask you to answer this question. Probably you can do it in a minute or so. 2 questions for you, sir. One, we have talked about managing of transportation and the port. However, there is an issue that has been raised here when it comes to movement of people from work, school, or whatsoever. There's always traffic issues and snarl-ups. I remember in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, then Deputy President, of course, who is now President-elect, was in Europe. And in his Europe tour, he came to Brussels, where he addressed the Kenyan diaspora. And one thing he said, they were going to start what we call city trams. This is a dream that was mentioned but never came to be realized. How exactly can we be sure that the Mr. President is going to make sure that everything he's promised comes to pass, if simple promises have not been done in the past?
Eli, you understand, the president-elect has not even been sworn in, but you can see him keeping the promises he has made. One of the promises he has made is trust. He has built trust with the people he's working with. You can see the election of Wetangula. That is a promise he has kept. You can see the election of Kingi. That is a promise he has kept. So what we are telling Kenyans is that give William Ruto time, and he is going to implement the plan that he launched at Kasarani Sports Complex, step by step, based on priority basis. If right now, Eli, we talk about building the city trams that we're talking about to ease in traffic, does that put food on the table for the Kenyan person? It does not. And that is why after he's sworn in and after the cabinet that he's going to pick is approved by parliament, he's going to ensure some of the policies that are going to be put. You understand that the CS Macharia, the current CS Macharia, barred public transport buses or vans from using the expressway. And yet this expressway was meant to ease the traffic that we feel. You have seen or witnessed snarl-ups. And one of the concrete decisions that are going to be made is by allowing compliant PSV vehicles to use that expressway, because you can't have 1,000 cars out down here and you have 7 cars at the top, because there's a class difference. That is one of the radical changes that are going to happen immediately he's sworn in, to ensure that we easen the traffic. Because you see, you can't build an expressway and have some limitations that are, for lack of a better word, biased against a particular population. And yet the Kenyan economy is driven by public transport. So some of these things, Eli, we are going to implement them based on priority basis. And what we are telling Kenyan is, everything we put in our plan, we are going to implement it on priority basis. Because right now, yes.
Okay, I'll let you stick on that. You'll implement it on priority basis. For now, I will ask a question from Hannah. I know you want to contribute, but if you can have a question and a short contribution, it will be great. Then followed by Tabibu, Pastor Esmond, and Maurice, in that order. You'll answer them as last if there are questions to you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Eli. Everybody, you can see Pastor, you can see so many familiar faces. Kamesi has used a lot of the words we. I don't know if he's part of the government. That I would like him to let me know, and at what level. And when it comes to my contribution is, when it comes to microfinance, I would like to see that happening on the grassroots. Microfinancing, maybe that would help the bridge the gap. Maybe the youth job creation can come from that. I'd like to see the polytechnics being up again in raises, because it's not everybody that has to go to uni, and it's not everybody that is looking into that way. We need more plumbers, we need more electricians, we need, we need all that. So I would like to see more polytechnics being built, and it's not that everybody's has to go through the routes of university. My last, and most of the things that have been said, I agree with, but my last contribution is this. What he said about Kenyans studying here, and we are moving our bright minds to greener pastures, to go to Europe, America, and work there, while we have the need here. So I do not understand that. That fails me. Reason being, if I look at the health sector, which I'm a little bit involved with, if I look at the health sector, we do not have enough specialists. Our bright minds are all going to Europe and America. Why is that? Why are we? They're studying here, they're going over there and paying taxes there, and we are the ones who have taught them. I don't understand why. If you look at UK, the UK National Health Service is mostly run by foreigners. Without us, Africans, Indians, it would collapse. It's actually on the verge of collapsing since we've left the EU, because most of the other Europeans have gone back, the Polish, etc., etc. When it comes to the service industry, most of the jobs that were done by Polish, they're gone. So what I don't understand is why the Kenyans' brightest and minds studying here and then being shifted to Europe and all that. That does not make sense at all. When it comes to the health service, in fact, you cannot find specialists here in Kenya, but going to Europe or somewhere else, you find a Kenyan doctor who's treating you, or an African doctor treating you. But over here, you don't have them. Lastly, my last contribution I would like to say is, let's look at things. We're looking at things in a different perspective. It's rather, what can I do for my country, but not what my country can do for me. This is the mentality we need. What I can do for my country, how can I contribute to my country, but not about what can my country do for me. That is a wrong way of looking at things. And I'd like Hamisi to actually respond to that, because he's been using about we. And I can see your hands are up. And he says we can already see His Excellency President Ruto delivering in regards to Waitangula being the speaker. But I thought that is he is speaker through elections, and both parties do elect them. Both from both camps can have the choice of electing him. I don't know if he's appointed or that has changed. That said and done, I would like to say we move forward. We see what we can do for our country. My condolences to the Queen family and UK and Britain. At the same time, congratulations to Waitangula for his new position, and I hope he carries it with fairness and open-minded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. And to other speakers, when you see my hand raised, that means your moment is up. You have 50 seconds. Those 5 fingers point at 50 seconds. Thank you so much, Anna. I think Newton got your questions, and we'll make it short with the next speaker. Tabibu, followed by Pastor Esmond, then Maurice, and then final submissions by Hamasi. And possibly I'll give an opportunity to 1 or 2 people who are in the listener's position and would like to say a word or two. Tabibu? Okay, I guess he dusted off. Pastor Esmond.
Oh, thank you. I was also typing some message for work, and I think, is that 50 seconds or 1 minute?
You have 2 minutes maximum.
2 minutes maximum. I set my timer to make sure that I address everything that Missy, just please pay attention to what I'm going to raise. And I think I'll be very much interested in participating with you in a political conversation. I will open this by saying that you've made political comments, 5 of them that I've noted down that are not factual, that I would want to point out, and you can respond if you need to, but I just want to make sure that I put the facts straight. Number 1, the Keroshe issue started in 2006. It was not a political witch hunt, not because of a political affiliation to Ruto. And therefore, your statement, in my opinion, which I can be corrected, is misinformation to the listeners today. So the Keroshe issue has been going on. We have tracked it through, and it's a very clear admission that there's no political witch hunt about her tax issues with the KRA. 2006, there was not Uhuru in being the president, but the issue of I think that was Kibaki then. The other point that you made that I thought was extremely interesting, you pointed about labor-intensive economy. And I think we all, those of us who have been in these political discussions, we read the manifestos, we addressed them very clearly. And we have been in discussions both in these spaces and other forums. And by the way, the only candidate who addressed the labor-intensive approach with a very interesting discussion that mirrored what happened in China with the exporting of the labor market was Jimmy Wanjigi. It was not in the manifesto, and I'm thinking from your presentation, you made it clear that you have been part of I think the Kenya Council or the UDA. So that I think that's misrepresentation, because we've read through those, And I think I had a chance to be hosted by quite a number of people here, and I presented on those manifestos. And labor intensive was Jimmy Wanjigi, and who addressed that. The other thing in my short time that I have was the issue that you made, that we have seen an economic growth since the Supreme Court. Now, okay, with all due respect, you're dealing with a lot of us that are paying a lot of attention, doing a lot of research about our country and looking at a lot of things that are going on. But that statement, honestly speaking, now, I don't know if there is any metric that we can use to say that there's been a spur of economy since the Supreme Court ruling. You made that statement, I noted it very clear. In fact, you said economic progress in 3 weeks. And I think you said that correctly. So if we are really addressing this matter, we are past the campaigns, we are past the whole thing of this. Let's address this aspect of our unemployment crisis, cost of living, and how we are going to do it without necessarily being, just making statements that are not verifiable and are not probably intellectually, true. The other last point, which I want to say, because I don't have a lot of time, I wish I had, the aspect of the diaspora note that is trying to be decentralized. And then you say this statement that because it has been centralized. Now, I have absolutely no idea what you mean that the affairs of the diaspora have been centralized, and now Ruto says it's going to decentralize them. Now, that part is an interesting one that I would like to hear more about it, because we have a lot of interest in this. I remember as a college instructor, I gave my students a chance to write something about the bottom-up economy and all that. Of course, it's been discussed, it's been mentioned. We are not the first people, we didn't invent it, and I think I dislike those who keep saying that this is the first time it's being said. And I used to enjoy one of these, I can't remember the name. Sosion at in the initial stages used to tell us that this has never been heard anywhere in the world. It's a new thing we are starting, and then later on he changed the story. But honestly, as we speak right now, the concept you brought up, that is we are going to have unconditional loans, brother, we are trading on an extremely dangerous ground. I would rather we go with these friends who have talked about that they have started businesses. We can go and present, and see there's a track record, empower them to grow and employ people and train others, than saying that you don't need to have had any experience, you don't need to have any proof that you have been able to be successful in business, and we are going to give unconditional loans. I remember the first time I bought a house in the United States, had to be taken, I think that time Obama was giving grants, and I had to be taken through a class or being trained on even budgeting, basic budgeting. And then when I get some funds through to do my business, I get through if I get from the Smaller Business Association, it's called SBA in the US, they have to take me through some kind of training and monitor what I'm doing. And I have to prove that I have been able to start this. The concept of giving money to unconditional people to start business, I'm yet to read anywhere that is successful. And I'm willing to venture into that so that I can see how our country can benefit. Appreciate it. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you. Just take one last question from Maurice, please. If there's a question, if there's a quick reaction, then Maurice do so. I know, guys, there's so much to cover, but really time is not on. And if we can make use of that little time we have. Maurice.
Yeah, so just to add on to what Pastor Esmond has summarized a lot, that Newton has said. Newton, I was listening to you and I was shaking my head so vigorously. I think I need to go to the doctor to see if I'm going to need a brace to support my neck after shaking my head that much. I know the Kenya Kwanza won the elections. We won the elections. I mean, the method they won is a suspect, but we are going to agree that they did win. And we're going to accept Ruto as the president-elect, and we're going to support him as president. So that being said, the one thing that I want to caution the Kenya Kwanza people is there is something called "don't believe your hype." Okay, the Kenya Kwanza team was very good at messaging. Okay, what Kenyans call propaganda. So they were very good at messaging. They were messaging a lot. The bottom up idea is actually stolen from Joe Biden. You can even see word for word. If you go to whitehouse.gov, you will see that the bottom up principles and was just picked up by Ruto, lifted from there and plagiarized, and then he used it. The what do you call it? The Azimio people are terrible at countering that, and the disorganization in Azimio is what led to Kenya Kwanza winning the election. But it was very easy to call them out if there was a professional campaign running Azimio. So Esmond has pretty much summarized everything that I was going to say. I don't want to spend so much time here piling on, but I just want to caution you: don't believe the hype. Don't believe your hype. You may have gotten away with it during the campaigns because the other side was extremely unorganized. But some of the ideas that you are proposing are not going to be easily be implemented. We're going to actually be very curious how the Kenya Kwanza group is going to deal with the corruption, especially considering their vice president is in court right now being accused of corruption and stuff like that. So just a word of caution, don't believe your hype.
Okay, don't believe your hype. A word of caution, says Maurice. But again, as we sit here, we want to find out how can we help Mr. President address unemployment crisis and by extension, the cost of living. Hamasi, to you.
Eli, first of all, this is what I want to say. Yeah? I will start with Pastor someone here who spoke about the things that...
My question.
Come again?
Anna was asking
the question from Anna.
Oh, yes, I'm going to respond to those questions, but I just want to start with this. For that the gentleman has said are lies. I want to start with the Keroche issue. Maybe he's not informed. Keroche started having issues the moment the lady started supporting William Samoei Ruto, and he was promised.
Okay, buddy, I can send you an article that is inaccurate.
Oh, it is not inaccurate.
I would really like for Hamasi to make his presentation. Pastor Esmond, kindly allow Hamasi to make his presentation, and if you have a rebuttal, I will allow you the same.
I was so silent.
I'm sorry, Eli. I'm sorry about that.
So kindly just give me the space to respond. Keroche industry started having issues the moment the lady started supporting William Ruto, and that is a fact. 2, on the labor intensive concept, I'll just refer you to the UDA website and you go read through the plan, and I'll just give you a summary. I remember William Ruto during the launch of the manifesto, he categorically stated that why would a government invest 4 billion in building a gun industry and not invest in this textile industry that was done in Kitui by Honorable Charity Ngilu. He gave a very elaborate example of what he meant when he talked about labor intensive. For you here to state that it is only Jim Wanjigi who did that, that will be a lie, because I don't recall Jim Wanjigi making it to the presidential list for him to be able to launch even the presidential, his manifesto for the country. The other bit of the economic, I never mentioned anywhere 3 weeks. Maybe you had your own things. I said 3 days since the Supreme Court ruling, which happened on Monday. And what I meant is, if you check on our NSC,
but that is worse. That is worse, Newton. 3 days, 3 weeks.
You listen to me.
Maurice.
Or I let you guys speak.
Maurice, allow him kindly. Maurice.
Okay, Maurice, you can continue speaking then, because now me I'm speaking, you're interrupting.
No, I mean I just wanted to remark that the comparison you're making is worse. You're actually making.
Yeah, I'm telling you
making Esmond's point. Okay,
Can I
Edwin.
just come in quickly, gentlemen? And for the fact that we want to dispute, it's great so that we have a very robust conversation. But unfortunately, what Newton has mentioned is not news from the blues. It is been published in the businessdaily.com. You can go check it out. And markets gain 42 billion.
Just arguing. Are you getting me, Ellie?
If you can allow me, so that I rest the case, so that we can proceed. I was saying, gentlemen and ladies, I know you guys read a lot and you're avid readers. So when it comes to money, it's great to look out. And the NSC actually published in the daily Business Daily Africa.com reported that investors gained 42.1 billion in paper wealth, in the highest daily gain at the Nairobi Stock Exchange in 3 weeks. And this is just after the pronunciation was made. So this is not some fabrication of news, but it's actually on record. Kindly proceed, Hamasi.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Then the other bit I just want to mention is regards to the unconditional loans captured in our manifesto as Hustler Fund. You know, people who are well developed, who can access loans from banks, from established institutions, don't conceptualize, they don't understand when we talk about Hustlers Fund. When you talk about unconditional loans, they cannot comprehend it, they cannot understand it, because they don't fit in the shoes of the people who need this money. And we're not just building this from the blues. It is information we have from the people who need this money, who have expressed themselves, who have restrictions from the Credit Reference Bureau, the CRB. They've been listed there. They cannot access the planned or the structured loans from banks, from microfinance institutions that are so limiting. If you're not a member, you cannot access the money. So where we are saying is, there are young people who have brilliant ideas, but who cannot access funding. And that is where our presidential candidate, that is William Samoei Ruto, president-elect, said he's going to establish a Hustlers Fund that is not going to be conditional, but it's going to be accessible to enable these young people to access this credit. But you see, when we talk about these things, a lot of people are not understanding. And just to summarize the 4 points is, instead of people pointing fingers at what Kenya Kwanza promised, give us the time. We won the election. The president is going to be sworn in. Give us the time. Let us compare notes every 1 year. We sit down and we say, what have you achieved? We will tell you, and we will break it down and tell you, we have achieved this, this, and this. Because it is on paper, you think it is not doable. Because you did not think about it, you think Kenya Kwanza is not able to achieve it. You guys thought you will win election. We planned to win an election. We won it. You did not win it. And despite having all those systems. So why don't you let Kenya Kwanza implement its plan strategically and thought-wisely, prioritizing the factors that we have put in place to enable us achieve our goals? After 5 years, come judge us and tell us, you promised us A, B, C, D. You promised us a labor-intensive economy. Have you achieved it? We have not. We have not even been sworn in, for heaven's sake, as the Kenya Kwanza government. But here you are castigating our plans.
Eli, your contributors equally need protection. At least for the sake of truth, for the sake of truth and for facts, I think we are not doing campaigns. We came here because the topic was simple: unemployment crisis and cost of living. Now we are listening to some level of campaign that is really based not on facts. And right now I've stumbled, including even a legal basis that this argument of Kirochi started in 2006, and I have the figures right now if I have to read it. So if we are going to mislead the listeners today, I think it's quite unfortunate, because I don't think we have had a space like this where we are simply talking about things that are not based on facts. We might admit that we don't know that this case started in 2006 and it progressed in 2018. That's when the final, the first agreement was made, and I can read you the figure that was agreed on. And then we talk about facts. But honestly speaking, if we have to quote something that is also based on legal documents. We have to be very careful here. Otherwise, we are going to just have just a bubbly, another kind of campaign. We're not campaigning here. And when you're saying that you guys lost, you don't even know these people are talking about and contributing where they belong. Nobody has identified, as told you, who they voted for or not. We are talking about the Kenyan economy, the Kenyan unemployment crisis, and the cost of living. We are not even talking about whether there's a side here. This was not anything to do with whether there was a Kenya Kwanza or an Azimio. This was purely about the fact of unemployment and the cost of living. So I think it's kind of, I mean, Eli, we need some kind of fact checking, even if it's just live fact checking, for us to be able to move in a way that is intellectually engaging, factually, verifiable, so that we are able to speak to help our country. We are not benefiting any side. We are talking about what is true, what is right, and what is correct. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Pastor Esmond. And if you remember my words, I said very clearly, I will allow you a rebut, because we are not just taking a gospel truth, but we are looking at things at a very equal opportunity to respond and equally ask questions if there are any. And thank you for that clarification. Hamasi, I will allow you to finish up, and if there are other upcoming questions or rebuts, I will equally allow. And I know, guys, we're really stretching this, but can we be nice and finish this at 10? I see, in about another 10 minutes, Rosemary is still requesting for the mic, so is Geoffrey. I would like for us to be very good gentlemen and ladies. Hamasi.
Eli, please put me on queue as well. I don't think we'll finish in 10 minutes. So this debate will go on much longer than that.
Eli,
I will do my best. Hamasi.
I think from my end, probably I will not be able to engage with people who are bringing emotions in this thing. We're just talking facts and basics that are all over. So for someone to say 206 and then he comes and says 2018 is when things now, I don't know, happened, ABCD. Where was KRA all these years from 2006, as you mentioned, to 2018? There are some things you don't put emotions, and that is where a lot of us go wrong. You put emotions in an issue, you lose the direction. No one is campaigning here. I was just putting forth the plan we have as Kenya Kwanza, based on the information that we have collected across the country. And we have seen many car industries in this country collapsing, not because they want to collapse, because of the current regime not wanting them to succeed. Why is it that it is only Keroche and not East African breweries? Why is it that the Blue Moon Company owner had challenges? When we look at this thing from an objective point of view and we just wave our emotions from it, we are going to make progress in this particular issue. Because you speak this, someone wants to see the wrong in whatever you speak, instead of listening to whatever you're trying to communicate. And that is where, Eli, I think we go wrong as a country, because we are so busy to judge the other person instead of listening to whatever they're saying. And my basic thing is this: as Kenya Kwanza, we have a plan. Whoever doesn't agree to the plan, sit back and watch Kenya Kwanza implement their plan. At the end of the term, please come and judge us. If we will not have implemented whatever we have implemented, then you have the liberty to campaign and tell Kenyans that, look, these guys promised ABCD, they have not fulfilled. Kindly don't vote for them. I just want to respond to the issue of TVETs from the lady who requested. On this TVETs issue, if you can notice, during the tenure of Jubilee government, William Ruto has been called to sell the idea of TVETs. He has opened TVETs in almost all the counties, because he believes in building skills than just
in instilling education skills of all that. He just wants the practical skills. And he has been a champion, a champion for TVETs. If you go to Teso South, he has plans to put up a TVET in that particular region, because he believes in equipping these young people with skills. And you clearly said, this country needs plumbers, this country needs mansions, and all those skills are acquired in TVETs. And he has a plan to instill all these TVETs in the areas that are required. On the microfinance, he's going to achieve it through the Hustlers Fund, part of it. And again, he's going to protect the circles that exist, because we have seen circles go down with members' money. People have had, and they have earned their cash, they have saved in these particular institutions, but they go down. Reason being, mismanagement. And he has been very categorical on these issues. On the bit of corruption, he has been very clear. Look, this issue of arresting people on Thursday, Friday, Monday, and then you take them to court on Tuesday or something does not work. You just need to institutionalize this fight against corruption with the institutions that are there, so that the DCI does not need instruction from the president to go and arrest the deputy president who has committed a crime. And Ruto has been so clear on these issues. So what I want to summarize, Eli, is this. Kindly, give us the space to lead this country, because we have done our economic forums. We have the data, we have the information, not from scholars, not from strangers, but from the people in those particular counties and constituencies. So give us space, give us time, let us implement our plan. Immediately we are done, come and tell us, you promised us you will create labor-intensive industries. Where are they? And we will point to you and tell you, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. Then at that point you can tell us, no, you promised you're going to create these jobs. Where are they? We will tell you A, B, C, D. And we've created them. So give us the 5 years. Let us do our job and judge us by the things we will have done, because you have promised Kenyans. And as I said, we are going to keep the promise. There's a lady who asked,
Newton, as before I allow you to finish that conversation, because again, time is really running out. You keep saying we, you keep saying us. Anna asked, who is we and why you insist we? So for clarity purposes, who are you representing as we?
And that is what I was going to, and then you came in. Myself, I have been the spokesperson to Justin Muturi for the last 2 years. I have been part of the team that has crafted the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. I have been part of the team that we have been going around carrying out the economic forums that have happened under Kenya Kwanza. In regards to the young people, I have been on the front line to draft the youth charter under the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. And as we speak right now, the President of the Republic of Kenya is President-elect is William Ruto. And Justin Muturi, as we speak, he is the chairperson of the Transition Committee. I sit in those particular committees as we address the handover process. So when I say we are sitting there and going through this government transition as a team from Kenya Kwanza government. And from Tuesday, when the cabinet secretary positions will be announced, it will be a Kenya Kwanza team that will be proceeding, of which I have been involved all the way from campaigning, from strategy, and now we are going to the phase of implementation. So when I say we, it is the Kenya Kwanza government.
I am sorry, Commissioner Eli. Thank you for the clarification. Just you've left one part of that clarification, which was we have already implemented 2 of the promises that His Excellency President Ruto had promised. And then you mentioned rectangular, and you mentioned my former governor here in Kilifi. Yes. So
On that,
I asked if being the speaker, I thought he is being elected, and it's how good you lobby both sides of the spectrums, both sides of the parties, and to be elected, or is that not the case? If you're saying that the president promised Rectangular to be the house of the speaker of the house.
are you privy, maybe if I could just ask a question, are you privy to the pre-election agreements that were done between the political parties that form Kenya Kwanza?
Yeah.
So from that particular angle, you saw Kenya Kwanza signing agreements and treaties between the political parties through their party leaders. Did you watch that? Hello?
Yes, sir, I did.
Yes, you did. So on those particular signings, Moses Masika Wetangula came in and he was assured that when he's part of Kenya Kwanza, then Kenya Kwanza government is going to front him as the speaker. We never failed to deliver that. And that involves lobbying all the Kenya Kwanza and including even reaching out to the parties from the other side. And that is why Moses Masika Wetangula managed to garner 215. It wasn't only his strength, but it was the strength of the political party coalition, Kenya Kwanza. The same thing to Kingi. Kingi came to Kenya Kwanza after the signing ceremony was done. But when he came to Kenya Kwanza, because he believed in whatever we believed in, he came and said, hey, I'm coming to Kenya Kwanza. What are you giving the Costarian people? And Kingi coming in, he was told, look, you will be the Speaker of the Senate. And despite Moses Masika Wetangula resigning as the senator for Bungoma to go and vie for National Assembly, we managed to lobby as Kenya Kwanza team. It is just as simple as that. Those are 2 promises. This is someone who can be trusted. That is what I'm trying to say. And we trust starts from the
May
word
I
go.
interject? Sorry, Newton. Rewarding your cronies doesn't mean you're keeping promises to the population. May we please clearly?
No,
I think that is.
let me ask something. What was Kalonzo promised?
No, let's not
Let
talk
us be
about
factual.
political
Let us be
parties. I think
factual.
this
Let
is
us be
where the
factual.
question is coming from. To
No.
reward your crony is not akin to keeping the promises that the population were promised. We can talk about the laptops. Where are the laptops that Ruto promised?
No. Now you're losing it. Now. You're losing the direction. Eli.
No.
I beg
Guys, we are really going off the topic, and I'm afraid I might need to come in. We are really going off the topic. I believe Hannah's question was in good line. And why would I say that? She wanted it to be clear. Why would it be termed as a promise kept to Wetangula for him being elected as spokesperson, rather the speaker of the National Assembly, if I'm not mistaken. And that is why Hamasi was coming in to clarify. So let's not really take things out of project and out of proportion. I accept fair responses from each party, but let's stick to the topic at hand, which is unemployment crisis, and what are we gonna do to solve this solution? Otherwise, we'll go and spiral out of control. We'll not be able to achieve why we started this conversation. So unless there's anything in particular to that line, I will ask Newton to give his final remarks on that issue.
I think the thing I wanted to...
Okay, Speaker Pastor.
Is that my feedback? Sorry, my apologies. Here is my feedback. So I just wanted to just give a promise that I will share the chronology of the Koroche issues, and I think which based on both the High Court, also the Tax Appeal Tribunal, and the amount related from the the 467,704,167 that started in 2006 as the excise duty. I'll probably be able to give that later. I cannot give that now because I have that information. We have this expense this subject in another forum previously, and how that went down, so that we are able to put our listeners and our contributors in perspective, but also in verifiable documents that are not just based on what Esmond says. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with is this thing, can someone else go find this information? I don't have any kind of some people say that have what that phrase they use, that I have some maybe secret access, no information. I don't know what the phrase they use, but that it's like you're privy to something that other people are not privy to. I'm not privy to anything that other people cannot access. So what I would share is something that can be shared in this forum, because I think these forums all move forward, that gives a chronology of all these events, the appeals, the rulings, and what has been upheld, and how this led into this, so that we can all make our judgment based on what we find. So that's one thing that I can promise on that for sure, and I'm talking about it 100% committing publicly that I would share that. So that's one thing I wanted to say, because I didn't want to come out like I was misrepresenting information, because that's never been my intention. I think those who have hosted me in their forums know that I look at something that I research based, or not propaganda, but documented by public institutions. The second point I wanted to say is that these subjects are emotional, and therefore those who try to throw in the word that don't be emotional, I think they're just being unnecessarily inaccurate, because really there's nothing wrong being emotional about these subjects, as long as you're able to hold yourself within the parameters of the subjects we are doing. We are all emotional about these. The emotional subjects, we need to address them correctly. So I give my promise that I will share facts into this. So thank you so much. And if I get a final 30 seconds, I'll probably do that. But I just wanted to make sure that I clarify that on that particular subject, I give my promise.
Thank you so much, Pastor Esmond. Yes, Kamasi?
Let me just make a clarification here. And I will quote this.
Proceed.
From Lady Justice Kome's comments. He said, you cannot prosecute an issue with emotions, with hearsays, with just throwing. You see, you have to control your emotions for you to reason. You can't be sensational and expect to look at things in a more objective manner. And I am glad, I'm happy that Pastor has agreed that people are being emotional here. And yet there's nothing to be emotional here about. Here we are just talking about things objectively. And the main thing was unemployment and the cost of living. And I've said this, and I'm going to give this as my closing remarks. As Kenya Kwanza government, we are going to focus on priority-based implementation of our plan. Thank you so much, Eli.
Thank you so much. I will invite Maurice and then Marge, and I'll give a mic to Rosemary and Geoffrey as the last speakers before you can close down.
All right, thank you, Newton. Thank you for your submission. You're a true soldier, so I appreciate that, the passion that you have going into the government, and I wish you well. I'm not emotional, by the way, so I actually do not appreciate being called emotional, because I find that to be a fallacious argument to undermine your opponent's argument. You call them emotional. So if you're going to debate somebody, you cannot also play the part of the referee to also tell them what they are, because we are respecting each other's opinion. So anyway, I do not see Wetangula's speaker position as an achievement or as keeping a promise. Okay, that is just rewarding your cronies. Achievement in my books would be something like, okay, he has implemented the Hustler Fund and it has happened successfully. So we can put that one, we can chalk that one on the board. So giving your cronies a job, that is just, it's only good for him and Wetangula's family. I don't know how that helps Kenya. We had other people as well who could have done that job equally or better than Wetangula. So good for him to be able to do that. And as far as governance is concerned, I really hope that some of the ideas that Kenya Kwanza that promised are going to come to fruition. There is campaigning and then there is governance. So a lot of times the reality meets rhetoric. The first thing that the Kenya Kwanza government is going to realize is there is some people facing drought and hunger in Kenya. So those are going to really scramble their perfectly laid out plan, where they are criticizing the bullet factory and want to invest in the textile industry, and they'll find all these people who are being plastered on TV, who don't have food to eat, and they did not put in place any social services structures that they vilified that was coming across from the Azimio side. So I'm wishing Kenya Kwanza the best. I don't think it's a bad bunch of people. I just think that their ideas were seriously utopian, and I'm hoping that they will come up with some trick that we have never seen before and make them succeed. That's me.
Maurice, before I allow you to leave, I will ask you a question. Indeed, you've mentioned concerns about the Kenya Kwanza plan, probably of the textile. You've mentioned about the drought that we are facing. And indeed, the biggest issue is the unemployment crisis that is in the country and the cost of living by extension. What solution would you propose?
Well, I would propose for them to be realistic. The Kenya Kwanza Brigade has been very vocal in saying that Ukraine has nothing to do with the current economic structures. Really, the current global economic situation has not been affected by Ukraine, the war in Russia. Okay, so they're living in this weird world where they don't want to acknowledge even reality. Okay, and I blame this on Azimio's terrible campaign, where they were not able to really prosecute Ruto to actually remind him that he's 50% of the government. So he may have gotten away with that, but now he's going to be at the seat of the government. He's going to have to solve this problem. All those emails that were being sent to Uhuru Kenyatta, now those emails are going to be sent to him. So as far as the solution to the problem, they have to tackle corruption. First of all, they have to be very honest and figure out ways to prevent the big hole of 700 billion shillings disappearing from the Kenyan economy every year. A lot of that money goes to some of them over there, so they need to talk amongst themselves and stop each other from stealing that money. And then they also need to figure out a way to bring in new ways to create employment. I mean, I read the manifesto, the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. There was not a single idea to bring in new form of employment. It was all same old, same old. Let's go back to, in fact, at some point, Ruto even confused themselves how the internet works. So if they're going to come up with new ways, if they're not going to come up with new ways of employment, all the money they're going to throw at people, all this Hustler Fund and those things, which I hear they're going to give it out without any strings attached, without any kind of like repayment plan. I hope that's not true, because if that's true, then that's going to be another corruption scheme that we are looking at unfolding right before our eyes. So if they don't come up with new ways to create employment, I think we're going to be looking at a very painful 5 years to come.
Thank you, Maurice. I'll release you from the mic for the moment. I'll allow Marge to come in. Marge, please.
Yes, I would just like to underline that there's a huge difference between awarding your cronies and keeping promises. And I would also like to state that really, when we come to these spaces, we invest a lot of time. So we should really try to be very factual. Now, I'm not one of these persons who like hanging out their professions, but as an epidemiologist, I deal with numbers and figures, and there's something called a confounder. So this is something that actually would make you misinterpret, or you can interpret it in a different direction rather than what it really was. So like Eli, you cited something about movement of, I don't know, there was some economic, the people who like made money between the election date, the date that Ruto was declared president, and 3 weeks later, the argument would be what the other causes, So to argue or to want to attribute it to something, whereas you don't know for sure, might be considered as misleading. So really, we should be very factual, because otherwise we run a risk of just having conversations that are not leading anywhere. And apart from that, we should also appreciate the fact that we are dealing with individuals in this forum that are actually thinking. So when you tell somebody, I want to do this, expect that they ask you how you're going to do it, and they question the methods you're choosing. Do not expect them to just say, well, you're being given 5 years, and after that 5 years, that's when you expect the evaluation. No, expect them to check your plan before you begin, and also allow them to tell you whether this plan is going to be to function or not, of course, based on experience and expertise. And lastly, there's this statement that was not factual, where it was stated, Newton, I think he's gone now, it was stated that Ruto is going to accredit the educational certificates in Kenya so that they can match the standards of other countries. This is not factual, because Eli, now I'm talking to you, that this is not true. And when people come to your forum and that giving false information, I think we need to really say something. But because like if you want to be a medical doctor, you have the regulations of that country, that things to be followed. So really, we need to appreciate that we have thinking adults in this space, and we need to be as factual as possible. Of course, we cannot be perfect, but we need to be very factual. So I thank you so much for this opportunity today, and I thank everyone for listening.
Thank you, Marge. I'll definitely be able to make a comment or two on the same after your presentations. We'll allow Geoffrey to go because I see Rosemary has disconnected. Geoffrey.
Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. Now, I can see Hamas is gone. But what everyone here needs to know, that Hamas is a politician. And so he doesn't bulge easily. You know how Kenyan politicians are. So I hope you will listen to this part of the recording. But maybe a proposal to you, Eli, you can open up another day so that the contents of what the pastor will provide, because the pastor has promised us some things related to what Hamas was saying, so that we can discuss them in a different forum. Now, let me just say this. I'm in the informal sector, and there are two things which are very concerning to me. Number one, our sister Hannah proposed that we need more polytechnics. While that is true, but we also need to relook at the education level or the systems of education in the polytechnics, because what polytechnics are doing currently, they have taken the route of the universities, whereby they provide more theory than practicals, because I've been there. So you find yourself in a situation whereby if you have a person who has learned his skill on the job, that is, for example, someone that I have trained, and you compare to someone who has gone for a 2-year diploma in a polytechnic, this current polytechnics, I'd rather go for the person that has learned on the job, because he has more he has the practical skills ready with him to go. So if Hamasi was still here, I would advise him, or maybe propose to him, because now we are talking about proposal, that in one of those sittings, however much we need more polytechnics, we need to relook at the way the training in the polytechnics take place. Number two, licensing of business is crazy. I own a furniture shop and a furniture workshop. Now, what happens initially, kitambo kidogo, I would have a single license for the machines that are in the shop. That happened until 2018, whereby the requirement was that now you need a license for each of the machines. For example, if you have 20 different machines, you have to license each of those machines, which is too expensive. So there needs to be a way in which this one goes back to how it was, whereby if you're licensing something, then you need to have a single license to cover all these things, because it is making business very expensive. People who are just beginning business, most of them do not go even beyond a year, because the costs of sustaining that business in terms of licensing and bureaucracy becomes very expensive. I wish Hamasi was here so that we propose to him, now that he's in government, some of these things, but he's gone. I hope he will listen to this bit of the recording. Thank you very much, Eli.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. It's like you actually ripped words out of my mouth and lips, but we'll of course respond to that at a later stage. Pastor Esmond.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you know, and I'm glad people are disclosing who they are and what they do. Just number one, of course, for me in terms of media and everything, I call myself a student of the, you know, the Ndole media. Maurice is probably one person that has given me the platform to contribute these ideas, and I think it's one of those that I'm very proud that every time I have an opportunity, I go in. Actually, when you talked about this, I went in and researched in terms of numbers. Reason is that I'm a data person. For those who don't know, probably we are meeting for the first time. I'm a data analyst, a data scientist, finishing my doctoral degree in data science. But also, besides that, I also wanted to say that I've been also a trainer as an emotional intelligence trainer. One of the statements that people, especially those of us from Kenya, take offense to is the aspect that I will call him my senior Maurice said that it doesn't really good when people use the phrase that you are being emotional. I have no regret and complaint of being seen that are being emotional. There's nothing wrong being emotional about these subjects, as long as you have reasonable control. I have those who have read my profile, you see that I've been a presenter as an emotional intelligence, trainer in many corporate meetings and everything, and read a few books. And of course, Daniel Gorman is one that I would recommend. Emotional Intelligence: Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. Please read that book. It's just revolutionary. I would recommend another book by Travis Bradley about emotional intelligence. They are very critical and important thing to do, that you don't have to be afraid to be emotional in presenting your aspect, as long as it does not injure the next person, as long as it does not make you take you outside of your sense. So don't be very afraid about being emotional about presentation, but no limits. And there are 4 aspects. They explain that. But on the subject we have discussed today, and I think as Geoffrey presented, I will hold myself to account on the subject that I presented. I personally will reach out to Eli to make sure that I give you the breakdown of the chronology of the events that we have talked about, who covers what and all that, because we take a lot of pleasure in making sure that these forums are factual. These forums are not just talking about. I wish our friend was here, to know that there's nothing about give us. That language of saying that give us a chance to do this is trying to isolate that there are other people here in this forum who are not part of it. And I found that language a little bit concerning. And that's why I think a friend, was asking that what do you mean of saying we, meaning that we are not part of it? Because when this forum come in, yes, and I like how Maurice gives a full disclosure from the beginning. I never supported this, but now we have a president-elect we support, and this is what we do. Personally, from a pastoral standpoint, by the way, those who didn't know, I've been a pastor for 27 years. In fact, the pastor who took over the church that I started from my apartment in Kayole was in the forum today for 90% of the time, just dropped off. I've been doing this work 27 years later, but we know what the scripture says. We pray for the government of the day. There's nothing wrong. We are not saying this honestly because we want to say that you are wrong or you're right, but now we are moved to a new phase of being given platforms to scrutinize what we have, look at what the data says, the numbers say. I think it's time for us to start being honest about all these things and then work and then help everyone to move forward. Personally, I appreciate it's been very civil. The team, I think everybody that you have on your team, Eli, and I will endorse this. Next time you have and again, I probably shared it on my Twitter and everything, and I said, let's get on this. Let's talk about this. One speaker said something. This topic looked like it was boring, but when we got in, it was actually more fire than we even ever saw on the topic. So probably this is just on a light note. You may want to spice it up in a way that it's going to be, because this topic has been more fire than just saying unemployment crisis and cost of living. It just looks so flat, but the way the discussions have gone, the way the people have contributed, and people having from both sides of the spectrum, I think it's been really, really, really good. So I pray, sincere prayer, that God continues to keep us in Him, unite us, and make us know that in spite of this political, economic, and everything diversity that we have, we are still one. We are brothers and sisters across the oceans, from Europe to the America to Africa, and from all other places. May God bless you, and thank you, Eli, for the opportunity for me to be on your space.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor Esmond. Those are very kind words coming from you, and I must appreciate you for saying those words. And to everyone that has contributed, I'm going to make my closing remarks, but before I do that, let me appreciate everyone that has stayed through the conversation. I see you, Joseph Mwamos, Juma Vinta, Beren, Linda Mohammed, Ace Omondi Butula, Son of the Nile, Bay, Amani Bea, Colossia, and I see you, Joyce. Godwin definitely is taking the backseat, and Apondi, thank you so much for always standing and showing up for these spaces. I know it takes a lot of time because we have the intention of having a 2-hour talk, and then Pastor Esmond reminds us he has figures, then Marge tells us they took time to prepare, so we need to listen to them. So I do appreciate that. Now, let me say this. The whole reason we are having these conversations is not for the sake of having them. It is because we have had a very competitive electioneering period, and it is done as we speak. Now it is forging ahead. But I am of the feeling, other than complaining about everything that is wrong, we need now to start looking and identifying the problem, discussing a way forward, and proposing solutions that the coming government can work with to enable our community to grow and prosper and ensure we have prosperity. That's why when we speak here, we are addressing a letter to Mr. President. That's why it reads, Dear Mr. President, unemployment crisis and cost of living is one of the reasons we are here today. As we speak to you, Mr. President, our children are unable to go to school in public schools because possibly all the monies you've invested in the past few years didn't work to benefit our children. And now Our children are only going to private schools with the middle class earnings that most of us cannot afford. If you ask me, Mr. President, only to get a normal going school in a private school, I will have to pay $400 thereabout. This is the amount I've been told I need to earn at the end of the month. Unfortunately, no employer is ready to pay me this. Mr. President, you've had a great labor movement called KOTU. I have no idea what it has done for the workers, because as we sit here today, minimum wage is still wanting, cost of living skyrocketing. What are we going to do at the end of the day? We have proposals for you, Mr. President, and dear Mr. President, I dare tell you, you will not find all the solutions with the best of your cronies that you are now rewarding. You will not find the best of solutions by simply walking and shuffling from one country to the other in a presidential suit, and definitely that flight that will be managed by the Kenya Air Force. What we are telling you, Mr. President, is we need you to sit back and listen to the voices of these weak people, because they need you to see that we need to improve our unemployment numbers. We need to address the cost of living, and by so doing, you'll be able to have a healthy society. Having said that, Mr. President, there's one thing I need to remind you. We have heard about creating job opportunities, but one thing you have to do when creating job opportunities, I would prefer, why not? Rather, we will prefer, why not create an environment whereby an entrepreneur will be able to mentor a 16-year-old such that they are able to start learning soft skills at the job place. By so doing, when they take their end term exams, they know they will have 3 weeks break, and this 3 weeks break, they'll have to train simple soft skills, and not just to be paid fair to go back home, but actually earn tax-free money and put in their piggy banks at the end of the month. Dear Mr. President, this is possible because other countries are doing it. Why wait until I'm 21, go look for a job, and I'm asked for an experience that I've never had in the first place? Geoffrey here has said he has a great way of impacting skills, some that cannot be found in these TVET schools that you are looking out for. And therefore, Mr. President, enable the likes of Geoffrey, not only create employment by paying them to pay others to work at his workshop, and by so doing, reduce the number of young people are loitering on the streets instead of them mugging us, inaitwa kutupiga ngeta. They can actually take time to be creative and make money and learn the art of working and earning an honest living. Dear Mr. President, that is all the advice we could give. Unfortunately, time is not on our side, and we cannot come to State House because your friends are already blocking it. Maurice Ndole from Hot Seat News probably has something to tell you. Maurice, to you.
Eli, man, that his crowd is already blocking the path. Wewe unachokoza Ruto, wewe utafungwa jela. Mjua huyo jamaa si mchezo. Anyway, so just to I don't want to add too much time on this. I think I want to wish the president elect William Ruto well. Congratulations to him for winning the presidency. We are Kenyans, and we are wishing him well. We are wishing him success, and we are praying that the team that he's going to surround himself with is going to bring all the good to the Kenya, to our nation. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome you guys to my space tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow and Tuesday, we will be discussing the new coming Ruto's cabinet. One of the questions we're going to ask is, will Ruto reward Miguna with a cabinet position? And I think Miguna worked very hard for him, and he deserves something, especially for giving a hard time to Raila and Uhuru. So welcome to our space. We'll be sending that invite later tonight, and we'll talk about it when we get together tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm hoping we'll have Pastor Esmond there as one of the co-hosts, and Rosemary as the other co-host, and myself. Thank you very much for this space, Eli.
Thank you,
and
Maurice.
I see Godwin over there. Godwin, you've been too quiet, man. Good to see you, brother.
Borin has decided he's not going to be part of your politics because all he wants to know is how food will land on his table. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to be here. I invite you to be part of our great community there on YouTube. The Arts in Heart is the handle. Follow us, get to know the work we're doing. We have amazing shows that we carry on.
Hope to see you. It's been a while actually, but I'll see you tomorrow on your space. Hope you'll give me a chance to speak.
I will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very unceremonious cut, but we call it in direction. Cut, take two. Thank you so much, everybody that came in, and I appreciate you for your time. I look forward to having you on our other channels. That is the Arts in Heart Official on YouTube. I am expecting almost 20 subscriptions from all of you. So visit us to see the work we do out there. It is an amazing platform that handles both, social issues, financial issues, and of course at leadership level. I therefore invite you to be part of the family. Having said that, it is my immense and of course honor to welcome Pastor Esmond to say a word of prayer before we can call it a night for those who are going to bed, and a good afternoon for those who still have a long day to go. Pastor Esmond.
Yeah, thank you, Eli, and thank you for the hosting this platform and everybody that has joined us. And I want to thank you all that you have contributed so graciously, that you will continue to grow together as one family, even if we have different, ideas in terms of governance, but still, we have never forgotten the bond that brings us together as a people. We are brothers and sisters in Christ. Thank you for those, and even as we invite you for tomorrow's Maurice Dole and Hot Seat News, space, please join us tomorrow. Let's pray together as we thank God for the night. Thank you, God, for giving us an opportunity to share. You brought us together for a reason at such a time as this. Though diverse in terms of opinion and ideas, but yet we have never forgotten that we have to look out for each other. I thank you, God, for Eli that has continued to lead these spaces in a very special way. Continue to bless him in whatever he does. Continue to expand his territories. Continue to guide him and give him the wisdom that is exhibited in the ways leading these spaces. Continue to expand it. I pray that, Lord, through all this, we will remember that though different in opinion, we are not enemies. We are your children. We have many people that have stayed up late, so very late, just to be here to hear what our brothers and sisters can contribute. May you bless them. We have others that are still at work, others that are still getting out of work. May you bind us together. As we end this Twitter space, bind us with cords of love, that we may never forget that we are one in you. Until we meet again, we surrender to your Lordship. Regardless of our faith, we have so many other faiths represented here, our Muslim brothers and sisters. We have so many people, Hindus, we have those who even don't subscribe to any faith, but yet there is something that binds us together. May we continue to be united. For in Jesus' name we pray and believe.
Amen. And guys,
Amen.
it has been a pleasure having you. Maurice.